Hey, this is Kevin Kelly, and you are listening to the Stardom Cast.
This is Jesse from Club Venus from Stardom, and you're watching Stardom Cast.
Hello guys and welcome to the Stardom Cast, a weekly audio source of all things World Wonder Ring Stardom. I'm your host, Rob Goodwin, and I am joined by the man I haven't seen in 36 hours, and as you can hear, I'm all the worse for it. It's Matt Turner. Matt Turner, how the devil are you?
I'm great, my man. Both me and you are a little kind of sore throats, a little bit of a cold, but we're going to power through because I know a lot of our listeners have been asking, are you going to do a full review of all the shenanigans that went down during PhillyMania? And folks, that's what this podcast is going to be about. It's all going to be about literally not many notes. It's just Rob and I are going to go by day, all the fun-filled adventures that awaited us in the city of brotherly love. But my man, other than a little bit of a sore throat, I am good to go. I feel great. I'm doing well. How's everything with you? I know you just landed in England just a handful of hours ago. How was your flight, and how's everything back over there in the homeland?
Well, it's funny you should say that because we landed in London Heathrow and the weather was lovely. A bit cool, but beautiful skies. And we took off to go to Manchester, and the pilot said, "Oh, not a cloud in the sky. Not a cloud in the sky." It was a 20-minute flight, just over. I'm not joking, Matt. The moment we landed, it started raining. I was like, for God's sake, it couldn't be more stereotypically British. But yeah, apart from that, the flight was good. I finally watched Blue Beetle on the flight back, as well as watching Godzilla King of the Monsters, which I think everyone will agree are the best type of flight film because you don't have to think. It's just big monster go boom boom. Which is effectively the plot. I'm still not entirely sure what the big butterfly was for, but that's by the by. How was your drive back? Obviously, I know you left Monday morning to go back to work. How was everything when you got home and things like that?
Everything was good. I had no issues getting home. It was gorgeous on the final day, considering the fact that when I picked you up, and obviously we're going to get into the day by day, almost a blow by blow recollection. When you landed, they wouldn't let you off the plane because it was raining out so hard, and it was a little bit chilly on the nights of WrestleMania. For some reason, it was chilly. It was colder on night one than night two, even though the temperature was warmer on night one. But no, it was an easy drive home once I got on the turnpike. It was a turnpike to 33 to 22 to 33, and then kind of just the side roads and all the farming land that I live by, which you saw when I picked you up on Wednesday. But no, it was nice to be home. Nice little 4-day guys trip. But it was nice to be home. Nice to see the cats, and nice to be home with Amber and sleep in my own bed. So less all of the Paul snoring. So it was nice, and work's been pretty good. Busy, a lot of stuff to get back to, and we haven't podcasted together in like 8 days because I think we podcasted Tuesday last week. So it's been 8 days since we podcast together, my man. So let's see if we remember how to do this.
Genuinely, I don't think we do. I don't know how to open the podcast. I don't know anything anymore. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, it's been a full-on week, and I can't wait to talk to you all about it. We've got jam-packed schedule to talk to you about. We've got a load of news coming out of WrestleMania week as well, from everything to do with Julia, Kyrie. We've got some stuff to do with Saki Kashima's flight home, which is hilarious. And we've also got some stuff to do with Tony Khan and the Ring of Honor social media call. See what I mean? The Ring of Honor media call. But after that, we'll go through all of our days, and then we'll preview the show on the 12th of April from Korakuen Hall, which, of course, is the final matches for both Julia and Utami, as that Korakuen Hall card has been announced. And we'll also talk a little bit about Windy City Riot, which is on the same day, the 12th of April, with Azumi going for Stephanie Vacca's New Japan Strong Women's Championship. But before we get into all of that, before we get into all of the good things like calling out Josh Barnett or, calling out Minoru Suzuki even, all of which we'll get into. Matt Turner, what is coming up on our Patreon this week?
On the Patreon, folks, I put a message up on the Patreon just yesterday because myself and Rob were away for a few days that we did not get a chance to record anything other than the live podcast, which I believe Sean, as we're recording, he's editing now. So hopefully that'll be up by this weekend. But there is, we did realize there is 5 Mondays in the month of April. So Monday, Tuesday, we like to release the audio and the video for the alternate commentary. Now, Azumi, I did a solo one just because Rob was so busy packing and trying to get everything done, spending as much time as he could with his loved ones back in England before we adopted him as a fellow forger here in Pennsylvania. And congratulations, by the way, I think. But so there is an Azumi versus Momo Watanabe in the can, ready to go. Hopefully that'll be up. Rob, no pressure, sometime maybe this week, give or take.
That's the plan. That is the plan.
Okay. So that one will be that one will probably be in the feed, and then we also have Mina Shirakawa versus Saya Kamatani. That'll probably be up in about a week or so because we have to record that. So I did make mention that we like to drop these every Monday and Tuesday, but because we were away, we have some catching up to do. Those alternate commentaries, you will get 5 this month. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. So you will get the most bang for your buck. And then I will be recording probably later today if my voice holds up for the $10 tier, the Rossi Vice tier. That'll probably be dropped sometime either over the weekend or on Monday. I'll be comparing and contrasting what show I like better. Was it from the 2022, 5-star Grand Prix? Did I like night 1 better or night 2? So again, I'm planning on recording that when I get home tonight, all depending if my voice holds up. And then I got a couple things on schedule with Andy Header. I believe we're going to do a roundtable discussion of what top 5 wrestlers we would like to see in Stardom. So hopefully those episodes should be in your feed in a week or two. And again, I apologize. Again, I know everybody was very understanding that even though Rob and I were together, we really didn't have any time to record anything because we were just so jammed busy with all the stuff we did, which is, again, what you hear on this podcast. So there's going to be, some of the Patreon episodes will be out a little bit later, but you're going to get a jam-packed, a lot of really great stuff in the month of April.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got something quite exciting, hopefully, fingers crossed, that I'll be doing. They'll be recording on a not even slightly regular basis for the Rossi Vice tier, but it's very much still in the formative stages. So once I've got things a little bit more sort of formulated, we'll talk a little bit more about that, and I'll let you know what is coming up and when. Let's dive into this news then, Matt. Matt, I don't know if you know this, but it was WrestleMania this week, and Mark Henry made the news. I don't know if you saw this, but whilst sitting on the Busted Open panel, the sort of live show that they did, Mark Henry went to town on the Pirate Princess. Basically, during Damage Control's match with Naomi, Bianca Belair, and Jade Cargill, Mark took issue with the way Kyrie got out of the ring, and rather than expressing it, normally he seemed to go off on what can only be described as a bit of a laughable tirade. Now, Matt, first things first, you are an old veteran of the wrestling business. I apologize for using the word old. I apologize for using the word veteran. But first thing, how important are these sort of, Mark called out Kyrie for not respecting the business. I don't know if you've seen the clip that he's referring to. Basically, as the three faces are making their way to the ring, Damage Control are mocking it, dancing in the ring, and it takes Kyrie a little bit longer to get out of the ring than it does Asuka or Dakota Kai, and she walks to a different side of the ring to get out of the ring. I don't know if you've seen it. I just wanted to hear your opinion on what Mark said.
I have a lot of respect for Mark Henry. There's a reason why he's a WWE Hall of Famer, and obviously he's been sitting under the WWE learning tree for many, many years. And from what I understand, he's very helpful to a lot of the younger talents in AEW. So obviously this is a Stardom podcast. I'm obviously going to come to Kyrie's rescue, even though she doesn't need it on this. But I just want to say that I have a ton of respect for Mark Henry. And I've had some of my friends that have worked, for lack of a better term, squash matches, job matches against him over the years. And they said that he is nothing but super, super kind and was very careful with him in the ring. Because he does look like he can probably kill a live gorilla. But so I just want to put that out there that Mark Henry, from what I understand, is a great, great, great person. And he's a fantastic wrestler. I did see the clip. I don't know what he was exactly talking about with Kyrie, so I don't want to comment it on all the way. I did not go back and rewatch any of the matches from WrestleMania other than the maybe final 5 minutes of Roman and Cody, because I wanted to see all those crazy run-ins. But I didn't get a chance to go back and watch on TV. Obviously, we were there for the those two shows. So, I don't want to comment on all the way because I don't understand what he's talking about. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. But to say that Kyrie doesn't respect the business, my simple answer is go and watch the two matches she had with Meiko Satomura for the Stardom World, the red belt for the Stardom World Heavyweight Championship. Because if you watch those two matches and if you don't think Kyrie respects the business, then I got nothing for you. So,
don't get me wrong, Kyrie definitely takes a little bit longer getting out of the ring, but it's one of those where the punishment certainly does not fit the crime. The way Mark talks about it, you would think that Kyrie stands in the middle of their entrance and ruins it. From what I can see, she just goes to a different side of the ring. I saw that Dakota Kai tweeted out that we stand with Kyrie. Kyrie is like one of the most lovely, respectful people that is on the entire roster. I know that we've talked to people who've worked backstage with WWE and are working backstage at WWE, and they've had nothing but the kindest things to say about Kyrie. Said she's an absolute sweetheart. Basically, I think it's something that is blowing up out of nothing, to be perfectly honest. I don't think the tirade was justified. I don't think it was necessary. I know that especially for a lot of old timers, quote unquote, respect is very important. However, there's nothing that I see there that even slightly resembles a lack of respect. And I know that obviously, dancing during the entrances, they're heels. They are.
That's what they've been doing.
Exactly.
That's what they've been doing too. If even on the house shows where they're all being recorded, that's kind of their thing that they do, especially Kyrie and Asuka. They kind of mock, they kind of do like a little kabuki dance. That's their gimmick.
It's the whole point. It's the whole point of their gimmick. Anyway, look, it was more a case of, what do you think about it? As someone who has been in the ring, someone who has, has wrestled through different eras where, we can argue that for some people, respect and, respecting those unwritten rules of wrestling, some people still live by that. Some people don't so much. I'm sure Mark's point he thought was very well articulated. Unfortunately, he's come across very, very poorly in the way that he's delivered it. And again, I don't know Mark Henry. I've heard nothing but good things about Mark Henry. However, I can't think of a time I've seen anyone be more wide of the mark than, pun very much intended, that the Mark is here, to be perfectly honest. So, yes, the Stardom Cast official position is we stand with Kyrie because the Pirate Princess is awesome. And as Matt said, there are countless times where Kyrie has showed that she respects that business. And as someone that has wrestled in Japan, where arguably respect in the ring is even more important than in the US, I don't feel like I don't feel like it's an important point that Mark is making, to be perfectly honest. Let's move on then, because of course, like I said, it's WrestleMania week, which means that we have people showing up. And one of those people that showed up on our screens was the former Stardom wrestler, now freelancer, Julia, who Corey Brennan of Fightful.com, who I will just call out now for doing absolutely fantastic work over the last couple of weeks in regard to this story. She has officially agreed to join WWE. This was sort of ratified by the fact that a picture of Julia put up of her attending WrestleMania, she had a backstage pass that said performer on it. We know that Julia, or we are under the impression that Julia is at least going to stick around for a couple of months to help Rossi's new promotion, Rossi Vice Wrestling, get off the ground. But it does appear that Julia, having appeared in the crowd at NXT, got a huge pop from the crowd. We were there. It does appear that Julia is WWE bound, as we did initially think. Matt, are you excited to see Julia in a WWE ring? And how happy are you that it happens during this, much lauded Paul Levesque era rather than under the previous regime?
Yeah, I don't think I don't know if Vince would have wanted to really sign her or do much with her if if Triple H wasn't there. If you think about it, when Triple H ran NXT, he loves the Joshi style talent. Asuka, look what we did with Asuka. Did lose the match in NXT. Kyrie was the first winner of the Mae Young Classic, won the NXT Championship. Iyo the next year goes to the finals against Toni Storm. So Triple H really understands great wrestlers, especially coming over from the over in Japan. The Joshi scene. So I think she's going to do well there. I mean, we've seen her entrances, how awesome they look on the bigger stages. But I mean by that, like All-Star Grand Queen. I look at All-Star Grand Queendom. You look at the finals of the 5-Star in 2022. Just think how much that's going to be with that multi-million-dollar production crew behind her. I'm glad they didn't change her name. But something else too to think about, partner, is not only did Julia have the performer band, what's the word, performer bracelet thing on, where it said that on her thing it said that she's a performer. So did Rossi Ogawa. Rossi Ogawa obviously was there with Julia. I think it leaked on Wednesday that people saw Rossi and Julia at the same airport going to Philadelphia, so we figured they'd be involved one way or another. So not only did Julia's badge, that's what I was looking for, Julia's badge they performed, but Rossi as well. If you remember, I think it was right around the holidays, Christmas and New Year's, at the start of this year, where it's heavily rumored that Stardom was going to have a working relationship or trying to get a working relationship with WWE. Now, obviously, it seems pretty clear that Stardom is working with AEW. But to me, and I'm kind of getting, I don't have any concrete evidence, but to me, if Julia has signed with WWE, but at the same time, she's going to be doing a handful of shows for Rossi's new company, and Rossi, who's going to be making the announcement for what we understand a week or two about the new promotion. But at the same time, Rossi had the same, performer badge that Julia had. Maybe it wasn't Stardom that WWE was in talks with. Maybe it was Rossi Ogawa and Rossi's new company. And what a better way to start off your new company than working not only with the biggest wrestling company in the world, but coming off record-breaking numbers that they did on Raw, on SmackDown, on social media, on YouTube, and WrestleMania as well. I mean, WWE is the hottest thing going right now, and this is absolutely perfect time for Rossi to make an announcement for the start of his company. I think Julia's going to do well there. It really seems like I actually just watched last night before I went to bed the Paul Heyman induction speech from the WWE, and he was really putting over how much the atmosphere has changed since Triple H, Paul Levesque has taken over. So, yeah, man, good on them. I mean, this is literally the perfect time, and it's really for how hot Stardom is and how great they're going to be, especially with this working relationship with AEW. Now it's time to see what Rossi's going to do. Rossi's company is going to do. Like I said, I again, it's a speculation on my part. I'm just kind of, connecting all the dots. I think that Rossi's company is going to have a working relationship with WWE. Obviously, Rossi has a great relationship with Kyrie and Iyo. So does that mean we see Kyrie and Iyo do some matches for Rossi's company sometime this year? It's a possibility. Do we finally get that dream match with Utami and Iyo sometime between now and the end of this year? All things are possible. All things are possible. We've seen Natty. She's been very adamant that she wants to go over to Japan to wrestle some of the top talent there. Do they send Natty Neidhart over, who's a phenomenal wrestler, but it's kind of getting lost in the shuffle, and they're not doing anything with just because the women's division is loaded and they're only allowed it a certain amount of times. So the possibilities are endless, not only for Rossi Vice Wrestling, but for Bushiroad Stardom as well. So it's exciting times, my friend. It really, really is.
Yeah, and that all brings me into my next point, because in an interview with Tokyo Sports, Rossi actually stated that he's going to be holding a press conference within the next week regarding his new promotion. Now, that means, Matt, that within by the next podcast, we will have more concrete details in regard to the new company. Now, to my knowledge, and from what I've sort of been told, that will include the promotion's name, the roster, the championships, and an idea of the schedule, if not a more concrete schedule. I think it's very telling that Rossi spent his time with WWE. We saw him with William Regal. We saw him with Paul Levesque. I think it is quite, like I said, telling that Rossi is forming those partnerships. I also read somewhere that there's a chance that Rossi might be talking to TNA as well, to build a relationship with TNA. I don't know how that will go, simply because I know TNA are working with New Japan and therefore is an extension AEW, but we'll see. I'm very intrigued to see where this new era takes us. And, you know, we've just come back from PhillyMania, Joshi Mania. It'll be interesting to see how that landscape looks in a year's time and whether Rossi Vice Wrestling is one of those companies that me and you talk about going to watch, if indeed Joshi Mania 2 Electric Boogaloo does happen. Matt, now, when was the last time you flew transatlantic, my friend?
I don't think ever.
Okay. Now, what's the longest flight you've been on?
Sorry, I had a mute. I had a cough. 7 hours, I want to say, from Philadelphia to Denver.
Okay. Now, as someone who has flown quite a considerable amount, and as I'm sure you can imagine, there is nothing worse on a flight than having your chair incessantly kicked from behind you, especially when it's a nighttime flight, especially when all you want to do is sleep. Saki Kashima was very, very annoyed, apparently, by the people kicking her seat. Now, from what I understand, the flight from Japan to Philadelphia, I think there's a connection in Los Angeles, is a fairly brutal flight, I'll be perfectly honest. But she sent out a tweet which honestly had me creasing. I don't know if you've seen this, Matt, but Saki's tweet read, and I quote, "Next time you kick my seat, I'm going to call Suri."
That's like when you used to get in trouble and then your mom would be like, just wait till your dad gets home.
Yeah,
just worse.
That's
you know
exactly
what I mean? Just
what
worse.
it was.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it was. But yeah, I thought I loved that. Obviously, a two-time high-speed champion, the low-speed champion herself, Saki Kashima, but we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Matt, this next piece we touched on. Sorry, dropped tea all over myself. So we touched on this during our live podcast in regard to the Ring of Honor media call. And our good friend, Art Editing, actually managed to ask a question in regard to the relationship between Tony Khan, Stardom, Ring of Honor, and how that has improved with Rossi now gone. Now, obviously, you know, we saw Tony put out that tweet when Rossi was fired, which, you know, we all agree, I think, was in poor taste. But Tony answered that it's been a lot easier to work with Stardom now that Rossi Ogawa is gone. He also adds that the new management is tremendous to work with, and he's glad about the changes that were made. Now, first things first, you can be happy with the changes they made. That's absolutely fine. You know, don't take issue with that. Again, you know, the tweet celebrating someone's firing, especially when you're a billionaire, very poor taste. But we won't harp on about that. But this relationship that he is talking about, it bought us 6 of the Stardom wrestlers on this recent Ring of Honor pay-per-view. It bought us Mina then debuting on Ring of Honor. We've got more Stardom exposure in America. What are your thoughts over this, Matt?
I think now that I'm kind of connecting the dots on what I just said with Rossi's, again, this is speculation, with Rossi's company starting up, the fact that Rossi's may or may not be working with the WWE. If that's true, Rossi had this in the back of his head. Maybe that's not why he wanted to work with AEW. Again, we're told that that's not the reason why it didn't happen. Then all of a sudden Rossi gets fired, and Tony Khan is saying on a media conference that it's been a lot easier since Rossi's been gone. So maybe that's the possibility. Rossi didn't want to work with AEW, knowing he was going to be working with WWE in the future. Again, I don't know. I'm kind of just throwing it out there. But again, the positives are we're getting more Stardom talent in front of more people. I mean, Rob, you were at every show as I was, and the Stardom talent got over like crazy. And it seems like every pay-per-view or every other pay-per-view, we're like, man, the show was good. The matches were good. The crowd just cared or didn't seem to care, but didn't seem to care enough. And I made mention on this podcast maybe the past 2 or 3 weeks, I'm like, these girls, I'm not sure if they understand how insane everybody is going to be over in the ECW arena. You have a rabid, hardcore, smart fan base, passionate fan base that loves wrestling. And from the bell, they didn't even lock up in the first match. And we mentioned the live podcast, and the people were going absolutely nuts for everything Stardom, between the GCW show, the Stardom wrestlers on the Ring of Honor show, the Spark Joshi show. They were getting reactions that was like Cork and Hall times 10. So the fact that they're going to come over here and they're going to get noticed again. Azumi and Mina Shirakawa, they're wrestling this weekend in Chicago. Again, Chicago is very much like Philadelphia, very passionate, very smart. They're going to get great reactions, especially Azumi and Steph Acker. It's a matchup that's probably going to steal the show. No disrespect to anybody else on the match, but it's probably going to steal the show. But getting more Stardom talent over here, I think it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer because you're going to be putting them in front of a huge, huge audience over here in the States. So, again, my man, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of for the company, it's great exposure. You know, we talked a lot about it on the live podcast because we were asked the question, where would you place the Stardom match? Because it was the night before. And I said I wanted it on first, build that atmosphere up for the rest of the show. They didn't. They started with Kyle Fletcher, and Big Shotty, which was a fantastic match, but sort of challenged then the Stardom wrestlers to sort of maintain that level of excitement from the crowd. And they did it really, really well. We were sat in front of a bunch of people who had never seen Stardom and got no idea what Stardom was. And the more the match progressed, you could hear they were getting into it. They were extremely excited about the speed of Meisera, the charisma of Mina Shirakawa, and the star quality of Azumi and Saya Gamatani. So in that area, it's only going to be good for Stardom. Getting more Western eyes who would otherwise not see these wrestlers, that's only a good thing for me personally. Now, one thing that was raised by Armani Shoe Exchange on Twitter, our friend Armani Shoe Exchange, who it might actually be one of my highlights of the week, finally putting a name to the famous, a face to the name, finally, but pointed out, we spent a lot of time last year talking about the work we are putting on these wrestlers. We saw the devastation of what those injuries did to the roster throughout the end of 2023, when it seemed like every single day the We Are Stardom Twitter account would be tweeting out such and such is injured, such and such is injured. We have cut down. We've seen Stardom significantly cut down their touring schedule. We tend to have 2 shows a week, Saturday and Sunday, and maybe a Friday. We're having one big pay-per-view a month, sorry. We've cut down the 5-star Grand Prix schedule significantly down from, just over 2 months to 3 weeks. But then again, if you are then having the talent flying in and out from America and the UK and Europe, and you're having them wrestle matches there, are we dangerously close to having the same issue, Matt?
It really seems like it. It's starting to seem like it, because now we're doing the few shows. Now, granted, there was no Stardom shows other than over in the States, so the girls got a break. So again, you can run your 2 or 3 shows a week, but maybe rotate some of them out from time to time. Rotate. You have a roster, especially when you have the rookies. I wouldn't obviously rotate the rookies out unless they need the time off, because they need the rest, but rotate them out, from time to time. Give Mayu maybe a weekend off. Give maybe Azumi or Asaya a show here off here or there. Again, I think the expansion over here in the States, and I believe this weekend is the match with Starlight Kid and Hanako over, and I think it was Taiwan. So you have them going all over a lot of these wrestlers going all over the place, which again, I am all for, because the more exposure that Stardom gets, it's going to be for the best. It's the best wrestling company in the world, bar none. So you kind of have to find your happy medium. Kind of have to have your happy medium with what they're going to do. But I think they just have just the one show this weekend, just the Korakuen show. If I'm correct, and I may be wrong, but I know that's kind of the one they're focusing on with the final Julia match and the final Utami match in Korakuen Hall. So again, it's kind of a happy medium that they have to find. They kind of just have to find their niche. Because it does really seem like that Mr. Okada and the new brass of Stardom is really looking forward to a U.S. expansion. Not even a U.S. expansion, like a global expansion. Maybe you'll get them over there in the U.K., partner. Maybe you'll get them over there in the U.K. sometime by the end of the year. I know that would be great, because the wrestling history over in England is huge. It's huge and it's rich. So, yeah, I can kind of see both points. Again, if they want to keep running shows and they're making money, I'm all for that. But maybe it might have to be something where they start maybe rotating some of the wrestlers out to give them, whether it's a weekend off or a week off or 2 weeks off. So again, that's something that really only the Stardom talent and the new booking committee know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important. That's something that has definitely improved since Harada's departure and Okada's sort of bringing in, is that the communication between the wrestlers and backstage seems to be better, because that was something that Julia came out and pretty much just eviscerated in an interview. And I think it's important that if Stardom wrestlers are getting burnt out or are getting close to injury, that they are rested, that they are looked after, rather than just pushing through. And I think we've seen that with the show, the Wrestling World 2024 in Taiwan show, the New Japan are running, where they are putting Starlight Kid in the show, who obviously huge talent, but then they are having her wrestle Hanako, who didn't go over to the US, has had that nice break. And I think that's important, because Stardom has got a deep roster when everyone is fit and raring to go. You know, you think about the talent we didn't see in Philly. Hanan had an extended break. Hazuki had an extended break. Saori Anou, the white belt champion, had an extended break, and a whole host of others had extended breaks as well. Half of Oedetai. So if you are smart about this, then I don't see it being an issue. You know, the exposure for the company is far going to outweigh the negatives. However, if you are sending the same wrestlers, so for example, if for every single New Japan show you have Mayu on it, or you have Mina Shirakawa, who I think is probably at the moment seen as one of the hottest commodities by Stardom in terms of the crossover appeal. If she is on every show, if she is wrestling every single, match that God gives, she's going to get hurt, she's going to get injured, and then you have a problem. I think a rotation of wrestlers, having maybe 3 main eventers that you can swap around, I think that is certainly the way to go, Matt, personally, because we don't want to get to a point where we are, 4, 5, 6 members of the main event down, because we've seen what that's like, and it's not pleasant. Obviously, one of the shows we're going to be talking about a little bit later was the show that we were sponsoring, Spark Joshi, a fantastic show. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Trailblaze 2024. It was live on Triller TV from the Monster Factory. And one of the weirdest partnerships, I think we can agree, Matt, was the partnership between Tam and Aja Kong, who had a cute off in the middle of the ring, which is possibly one of the most surreal things I've ever witnessed live. But Himanshu Doi has translated the post-match comments, and I thought this was really interesting. So Tam has said, "Aja, thank you, you're pretty cute." Aja then responded with, "You're not that cute," which made me laugh. Tam says, "Why? Tam is the cutest in the universe." Aja, "I've heard those rumors, but I don't think so. So even when I say that's beside you, that's not true." They continue to have this argument. And what is very, very much teased, Matt, is a match, a singles match between Aja Kong and Tam Nakano. Now, where that happens, whether that is in Spark or whether that is in, a different promotion, I don't know. Before this week, I would say, don't get me wrong, it's going to be a good match, but I don't know what the chemistry is going to be like. After seeing them together at Spark Joshi teaming up and it coming across bizarrely well, I would actually be really excited at the prospect of the singles match.
Rob, call me crazy. Aja Kong, still a star, still a draw, especially in Japan. Tam's got nothing to do at the end of the month. What if they do this in Yokohama?
Stop it.
What if they do this in Yokohama? I saw some of the tweeting back and forth or whatever. I didn't know that they're teasing a match. I mean, you need a big draw. Last year they had Mercedes Moné, right? They had Julia. They had Fuachan. So you had all that there to draw. It's crazy to say, brother, we're 3 weeks away from the show.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, the 3 matches they have are going to be really, really good. But again, you're looking to draw all 4,000 tickets. I mean, not unless they parachute Mercedes Moné in, but I don't think they're going to, I don't think Tony Khan's going to let her do anything outside of AEW for a while for reasons. He's put up all that money for her. Why would he just be like, yeah, you guys can have her? You need a big name to draw. Aja Khan could still, I can't believe she went as well as she did. Like, holy geez, like that match was fantastic on that Sunday, which again, we'll get into. Why not do Tam and Aja Kong? I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I've been wrong about a lot of things in my life, so it could be a possibility here. But that would draw a lot of tickets if you have one of the biggest draws in the history of Joshi. That is still a name that is still working. That's still working pretty good, and one of, if not the biggest draw in current day Stardom on your big show. Tam and Aja Kong, sure, why not?
Well, I mean, I think you'd find very few people who wouldn't want to see that. I mean, Aja Kong was one of the most over people at Spot Joshi by an absolute country mile. The idea of, you were stood next to me, and we'll talk about it later, just how much I marked out for seeing that spinning backfist. Well, I say seeing, hearing, because I imagine that was what caused some of the minor earthquakes we experienced in Philadelphia, because, oh my God, the connection was unreal. Absolutely brutal, but so fun to watch. I can't imagine that taking it from Shinai Kai was much fun, but also I imagine it's something of a little bit of a sick honor. I know that Allison Danger is a huge advocate of the spinning backfist and wants nothing more than for Aja Kong to lay it into her. So maybe, Matt, one day we can get Aja Kong and Allison Danger in the same room. We can get her to spinning backfist. That would be the dream, wouldn't it?
Anything to help our friend Allison out, because she has done phenomenal things for us and absolutely loves us. And I did, as soon as we got the picture taken, I did, while we were in the parking lot having a few adult beverages before we went to Mania Sunday, I sent her the picture of me, you, and Aja Kong, and she's like, "Oh, that is my dream. That's my dream." I said, and obviously this really didn't happen. I said, I told Aja Kong, I said, "You and Allison Danger, big money." She's like, "Stop." I said, "No, I didn't say that."
That would have been brilliant. She'd have loved that. Right, let's kick into what we've been doing this week, because good grief, Matt Turner, there are full schedules, and then there is what we did this week. And just looking at how many things we did, how many shows we watched, how many matches we saw live, how many fantastic matches we saw live, it's been a time. But one thing that took me completely by surprise, and part of the reason this podcast works so well is that your positivity sort of negates my worry and negativity that comes along with being just British, I suppose. But was how many people took the time to come and see us and tell us how much they enjoyed the podcast. And, I'm not just talking 4 or 5 people. Like, there was so many people that came up to us and asked for photos and said they're huge fans of the podcast, recognized our voices. It was surreal how many times people were like, "Are you Rob and Matt from the podcast?" And honestly, I just wanted to say, before we get into everything that we did during this crazy, crazy week, if you did, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone that came up to us. Thank you to everyone that turned up to the live podcast, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. Thank you to everyone that came up to us and, had a kind word to say, shook our hand, gave us a fist bump, had a photo. It was a very, very, very humbling experience, because, with the Stardom show, I was like, we might have 1 or 2 people. that sort of know who we are. But loads and loads of you came up to us. And then, of course, we had people at WrestleCon in the queues were talking to us because they love the podcast. We had one lad from Georgia, as in the state of Georgia, not the country of Georgia. I don't know how big our podcast is in Georgia of Europe. But literally came up to us in the bathroom and was like, I thought I recognized your voice, which is very surreal. I don't know if it's... I don't know how you feel, Matt, about being recognized whilst you're having a wee, but it's both humbling and frightening at the same time.
Yeah, it was, I figured we'd have a decent amount of people, but we didn't even get in. We got to the ECW Arena probably about an hour before doors open, give or take. And for anybody that ever goes there, the smart thing to do is to park in the Target about 70, 80 yards away. It's a straight shot. There's cameras in the Target. That's the safe bet. So whenever I go, that's where I park. Now, obviously, when I was wrestling there, because I was a worker, that I would park, underneath next to the dockway of the ECW Arena. But we were walking over, and we could see. First of all, the line to get in an hour before the show was just massive.
Oh,
it was
huge.
It was absolutely massive, and we didn't even get in line, and people were coming up to us, taking pictures, shaking our hand, hugging us, saying how much they appreciate the show, which is awesome. It's really, really humbling. And I kind of looked at you, and you were like, taken aback by it. And I was like, dude, I told you that this was going to happen. And it seemed like every few feet we went, somebody came up to us. And obviously, we were wearing our Stardom Cast shirts, and my buddy Paul and my cousin Frank, they were representing with Stardom Cast shirts. So people would do a double take and walk by. I'm like, you guys are the guys from the Stardom Cast. And I think me and you were an even joke. We're going to say, no, that's Matt and that's Rob. And just to kind of rib cousin Frank and Paul to see how they would handle it. No, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that even John Thurman, when we saw him at the Spark Joshi show, gave us a Mayu and Cam care package, which I thought was great that he went out of his way to make us something. And there were so many people that, again, the ECW arena is my favorite arena to ever watch wrestling because of just how much I've grown up in the, ECW in high school was like the coolest thing. Wrestling in the late 90s was so red hot between All Japan, New Japan, the Attitude Era, WCW was still really, really good. And then ECW was my, as much wrestling as I consumed, ECW was my favorite wrestling company my last few years in high school. Just because it had, it was something completely different. It's one of the reasons why I fell in love with Stardom. And it's my favorite wrestling company because it's something completely different than everything else. It's different but the same, if you know what I mean. But I thought that was, it was very humbling for how many times I performed in that building for so many different companies that it just took me and you to be talking real passionately and positively about how much we love Stardom. So it was like, again, to me, it's always the ECW arena. You can call it whatever, the 2300 arena, whatever you want. To me, it's the ECW arena. But to be waiting to go into that building with you, partner, with my, two of my lifelong best friends, with Norm, who has been such a huge supporter of everything I've done. Norm, from the owner and CEO of Funk Brewing, and to walk into that building, not even walk in that building, before we were going in, people just coming up to us and just saying the nicest things. And then we get in the building and people are just saying the nicest things. And then we were just standing there trying to watch the show and jam packed. And I've probably seen maybe 5 or 6 shows in the last maybe 5 or 6 years in that building. It was nowhere near as packed. I sent New Japan there a few times. I saw the Multiverse United show with New Japan and Impact or TNA or whatever they're called. No disrespect to those shows because they were pretty jammed. Nowhere near as packed as they were for Stardom. Nowhere near as loud as they were for Stardom. And partner, we were right in the thick of it. And it's very humbling. It's very humbling, but it's also very positive, and it gives us a lot of motivation to keep doing this show and keep getting better. People are saying that, like, I got into Stardom because of you. I'm watching Stardom because of you. I think this way because of you guys. I'm enjoying wrestling better because of you guys. And like, at the end of the day, if that's what we're doing, I mean, how much better does it get, partner? How much better does it get?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I was only joking. If you want to come up to me while I'm having a wee, that didn't happen. It was just in the bathroom, by the way. I said it for comic effect. But yeah, if I had someone on Twitter say, "Oh, I saw you, but I was a little bit nervous about coming up to me." Why? Come up and say hello. We're two blokes. We don't bite. We'd love to meet you. So please, if we do this again, please don't think twice about coming up to us because we would absolutely love it. We really, really would.
And you get free stickers. I think everybody that came up said, "Can I get a picture?" I'm like, hold on, you have to take free stickers first. So not only we say hello and sign everything and take pictures, we're going to give you stuff. So because it just shows our appreciation for the love of this podcast.
Absolutely, and who doesn't love free swag? So, I suppose we better get into the shenanigans of WrestleMania week. So, it all started on Wednesday. Wednesday, the 3rd of April, I flew out, and for someone who has never flown on his own before, let alone flown transatlantic on his own before, my flight was remarkably mundane. Not a lot massive happened apart from me taking my sweet ass time in Heathrow before realizing that I actually had to get a train to my departure gate and cutting it unnecessarily fine. But apart from that, everything was very, very smooth. The What Culture people were on the same flight out as me. But yeah, everything else smooth sailing. We get into Philadelphia. And as Matt said, it is tipping it down. Now, at this point, that's what they've given out for Mania weekend as well. Or that's the last thing I'd seen that they'd given out for Mania weekend. So I was like, oh, this is going to be nice and fun. So we sat there. They won't bring a jet bridge out to us because it's too wet, which I've never heard before, ever. I've landed in the rain before. I mean, I live in Britain. It is always raining in Britain. And it's never been an issue, but we sat on the jet bridge for 45 minutes. We then went to passport control because obviously we've just had an international flight, and that line just did not move for about an hour. Like, I was stood in the same position in that queue for an hour because they just didn't seem to have enough people on passport control. So you are doing laps of Philadelphia Airport at this point, like Apollo 13, where they're trying to like slingshot you around the moon. Eventually I do get out, of course, and then we had that beautiful cinematic romantic moment where our eyes met across the road, and we embraced in a huge hug of manliness. Our manliness sort of permeated the entirety of Philadelphia International Airport, and we finally now met, Matt.
There it was. I did not actually circle the airport, which I thought I was going to do. I haven't picked anybody up in Philadelphia in a handful of years, but I know just from, whether it's be certain airports in New Jersey, New York, Allentown, which is the one that's right next to me. They're smaller airports, but I know that Philadelphia is an absolute horror scene. So as I was getting closer to picking you up, there was a little cell phone holding zone. That's basically you just kind of pull your car over. And there were several cars that were pulled over there. And I think I texted you and I was like, oh, just let me know when you get your baggage because I'll be right there. So I didn't have to circle that airport a zillion times. And thank God that I didn't, because once I got to where you were in the British Airways terminal, I was like, okay, where do I park? Because I know if you double park somebody in for more than 2 or 3 minutes, there's a good chance that you're going to get a ticket. I've seen it happen before. So I'm like, I didn't know where to park. Luckily, there was a police officer that said, no, these people are moving. Why don't you come in here? Then he was super nice to me, and I was super glad that I was out of the way. And then I wasn't going to get a ticket because he was overly nice to me. And then I tried my usual joyous self. And I'm like, so how's everything? You guys seem really busy here, huh? And I was going to, bridge that to WrestleMania weekend. He's like, no, that's how it always is. I'm like, all right. And then he kind of stone-faced me and no-sold. And he was like, no problem. And then I went and found you. And there you were, my man. Gave me the big hug. And I knew from doing the visual podcast that you were a tall individual. But I was like, wow, Rob's a pretty tall guy. And I'm sure if anybody has not seen the pictures of him and May Sarah from Saturday, there were people at the Spark Joshi show. I was like, I know you. And I'm like, oh, they know him from the podcast. I'm like, no, I know you from that picture you put on Twitter of you and May Sarah, which was absolutely hilarious. So I thought that was great because we had, and I know it sounds like I'm bragging, but there was a lot of people that came up to us and was like, I know you guys from the podcast, or you, Matt and Rob from the podcast. But we were in line, I think, to meet Tam on Spark Joshi. Somebody said, oh, I know you. So I figured I know where it's going. He goes, you're that guy that put that picture of you and May Sarah out on Twitter. And I was like, what is he talking about? And then I literally took my phone and went on Rob's Twitter. I was like, oh, because he's like 2 feet tall and poor May Sarah. And you guys were doing a pose with your hand, the May Sarah pose where she puts the hands over her head. So it made you look even taller.
The one thing that was needed was more height on my side. I was talking to one of the lads from the Discord and said that it looks on that photo like someone who's got a very, very basic understanding of Photoshop and has got no idea of how to proportion things. That's what that photo looks like. But yes, May Sarah is that small compared to me.
You know what you should have done, and what may have gotten a bigger pop than me asking Sherry, and we're going to get into it. Me asking Sherry what I did, and she should have said, can I have a stool? Or can I use your chair? And maybe she would have thought like for her, but no, for you, because that's what you needed to do. You needed to be taller. And they purposely should have taken a picture where it's just like your neck down, where there's no head. I thought that would have been funny, but no. So then we got in the car, made sure you were okay. And actually, because I wasn't sure how long it was going to take, I know it was. Once I pulled into the cell phone parking lane, it said 2 hours drive home, which from me to Philly is like a little over an hour and a half. So I was like, okay, I know I'm going to hit that traffic. And even Amber told me, so you're picking him up at like 4:30 or 4:45. You're going to hit Philly traffic. It may take you over 2 hours to get home. So once I was in the cell phone waiting zone, I just put in from where I was on my phone to my right to my doorstep. I think it was like an hour and 57 minutes. I'm like, God, that's not too bad. So I probably sat there in that holding zone probably about an hour for you. And by the time you got in the car and we left, I think it went down to about $1.40. So majority of that traffic have already gone. So I'm like, okay. So it was other than the rain, it was dark. It was a smooth ride home. We got you home to my home front. And then I think it was Amber time from there, because I know she was going to go above and beyond for you for the handful of hours you're at my house. But because she was asking me certain questions, like, is Rob allergic to anything? And I was like, I think I know where this is going. And I think you told me, I think it was like penicillin or pollen or something like that. And I'm like, I think he'll be okay there. And then, yeah, my man, I mean, I talk about my wife a lot on this podcast, and I think that you know the reason why, especially now. But you know what? Let's put it over my wife. Let's go ahead. You explain what happened once we got home.
So for those who, are wondering, yes, Amber is real. There you go, brother. No, but she is absolutely lovely. She was perhaps one of the most welcoming people I've ever met in my entire life. On top of that, she had put together a care package. She had researched and put together a care package of American sweet treats and sort of knickknacks and things like that for me in this enormous, enormous box. And it was sitting on the kitchen table waiting for me. For breakfast the next morning, she physically made us a quiche, which was beautiful, by the way, underrated meal of the week. Honestly, the entire experience was lovely. I made best friends with your cat, Ace, who is mental, but it's amazing. I love it. But yes, Amber was the unsung hero of the entire WrestleMania week, because, like, I've never had furry sheets in bed before. And I got in bed having tried desperately to watch AEW before realizing it was like 5 a.m. my time. And I was like, I need to go to bed. And I got in bed and I was like, this is the comfiest bed I've ever been in. And I slept like an absolute log, which apparently you didn't know was a saying, or it's a British thing that you don't have.
Amber knew what it was. Maybe it's just I'm poorly educated. I don't know, but I know, and I did make mention. I know Amber redid the 2 different bedrooms in the upstairs this the past month or so. She was really like doing a little preparation every day, and I was like, honey, you don't have to go all out. But that's literally what she does. She's very unselfish. She is caring. She's loving. The reason why Rob said Amber does exist, my wife doesn't do social media. She has a Facebook. She barely goes on. She obviously doesn't do Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, anything like that. That's just not her thing. Where I'm on it all the time, both as my personal and professional account, just so we can, get as much stuff out as possible. So, yeah. And then she went and even bought you, I think, like custom sheets or something for that bed. So, like, nobody had slept on those sheets until you did. Like, she literally redid everything. So, if you're telling, and then you even told me once we got home, you said, I don't think I'm going to make the gym tomorrow morning. I said, no, that's fine. I said, I understand, because not only do we get it late, you have to add in the 5 extra hours that you were up, because of England is 5 hours ahead of America. And then when I came home from the gym Thursday morning, started making my protein shake, I asked you how you slept. He said, like a log. I said, like a log? I never heard of that. And then Amber looked at me and was like, you never heard of that? And I was like, oh, maybe it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's an Old Forge thing. Maybe it's too northeastern Pennsylvania. But no, man, I'm glad that you slept well. And Amber took care of all of us. And then I didn't know that Paul and cousin Frank were going to meet us in till they literally showed up at the doorstep. So all of a sudden, Amber turns around. There's like 84 people in her house getting ready to trip to WrestleMania weekend, which I thought was very comical.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that morning was great. I met editor-in-chief Sean, who is the man. Met Paul, who you are absolutely right, is the spitting image in voice and in look of Zach Galifianakis. And, of course, I met your cousin Frank as well, which apparently is the name given to every single member of your family that is male, Matt.
Either Frank or Joe. Either Frank or Joe. I was best man at his wedding about 10 years ago, and I did make reference. I said, if you're somebody's date at this wedding and you don't know our family history, all you got to do is yell Frank or Joe really loud, and and there'll be about 50 or 60 people in this room that will turn around. So that's why we call him, I think I introduced him to some people as Cousin Frank. In case you're wondering why we call him Cousin Frank, is my brother's name is Frank. My dad's name is Frank, who you did meet. My uncle, who's his dad, his name is Frank. And my great-grandfather was alive. He passed away in 1990, so I was 8. So his name is Frank as well. So we just started nicknaming him Cousin Frank when we were probably in grade school, and it's stuck ever since.
There you go. But yeah, so we met up. Me and Sean took some prom pictures because we're both beautiful and we're worth it. And then we headed out. By the way, something that I didn't mention, and something that I don't sort of grasp about America, because it is such a ridiculously large country. Sometimes you forget just how big it is. In fact, I think you can fit the entirety of England into Pennsylvania twice or something, which gives you some indication of just how small England is in comparison. But I was under the impression that you lived significantly closer to the airport than you did when you put it into your sat nav, and I was like, an hour and 40 minutes. So thank you for that. I don't know if I expressed that gratitude to your face, but thank you for coming to pick me up. So we then obviously left to go to the Stardom Show. We've already talked a little bit about the Stardom Show on the podcast, on the live podcast, which editor-in-chief Sean is editing at the moment, and we will be up for all of your listening pleasure very, very soon. But Matt, talk a little bit about the whole experience of the Stardom Show, your general thought about the show in general, things like that.
Yeah, actually, Sean just I was talking a little bit yesterday. He actually texted me about 10 or 15 minutes ago that he's working on the editing. I know a lot of people asked, is this show going to be is it going to be up? And from what it seems like, he's just about wrapping it up. So hopefully by this weekend he'll have it up for everybody to listen to. Patreon members will probably get a little bit early, and then it'll be on the free feed for everybody. Again, fingers crossed, hopefully by Friday and Saturday. Now, generally the idea was, okay, we're going to get the big negative thing out of the way, to literally the point where Rob and I rolled reverse for a little bit. And to anybody that was on the show, that was at the live podcast, first of all, thank you. And anybody that couldn't attend, but heard that it started late, and you probably were wondering why. So I'm going to kind of go through. I'm not going to bury anybody. I'm not going to bury anybody, because everybody we talked to at the bar was lovely. Everybody we dealt with at the bar was fantastic. The food was great. The servers were great. I'm not even going to name the bar. I'm going to call the bar, because I don't want to bury anybody. At the same time, part of my language, I was pretty pissed off. And damn it, I had a right to be. So I'm going to lay everything out here. 2 months ago, Norm, my buddy Norm, who owns Funk Brewing, I talked to him. I said, this is what I'd like to do. About 5-6 days later, he said, here's the venue. Here's the phone number for the person that runs the bar. I text the person back and forth a little bit. Most of the questions that we had for the bar were tech questions. Now, not only is Sean our editor-in-chief and a phenomenal human being and just a great, great guy, but one of his side jobs, he's like me, he has 84 jobs. One of his side jobs is he's a DJ, and he hosts trivia night at bars. So he has his own equipment. So he even said, more than likely, I might be able to live stream this, but I can probably record it and put it right on my computer and then upload it. I said, okay, no problem. He just had a couple questions. He said, you know what, Matt? He said, you're doing enough. You're busy enough. You're working 84 jobs. You're planning this trip. You're getting everybody's tickets. You're making sure that everybody in your party, meaning Rob, my cousin Frank, and Paul, are having a good time. It's a lot of these questions that I have are questions for me. Give me the phone number of the person that's running this, and I'll take over everything for you. obviously I trust Sean. I everything with the Stardom cast, I absolutely love the Stardom cast. I know technically it's Rob's baby. It's my baby as well. I put a lot into this, and I 100% trust Sean in doing this. So I said, absolutely, buddy. Thank you so much. This is one less thing. He's like, you don't have to worry about anything. Anything that I talk to with said person, I'll go back with you. Everything seemed fine. He said, I won't know until I get there, but I think I can live stream this. But I'm 99% sure that I can record it and upload it as a future episode for the people that can't attend. Great. Fantastic. 2 or 3 days before the event, said person from the bar sends me a text message. I said, I don't know. Let me ask Sean. Sean said, don't worry about it. I'll call said person in about an hour. About 2 hours later, he texted me, said, dude, don't worry. We're good to go. Great. Obviously, again, ECW Arena was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I know myself and Rob are probably be doing Mike and Megan Bain as an alternate commentary, maybe next month, because that's a match I definitely want to revisit. Now, the Stardom show was less than 2 hours. By the time it was over, now the live podcast show was supposed to start at 7. We did make mention to a lot of people online and a lot of people that we talked to that said they probably can't make the Stardom show because they were going to either DDT or they're going to the Undertaker live show or the Major Brothers podcast that they would really like to show the support, but they might not be able to go. So the show gets over with. It had to be before 5 o'clock. So we had 2 hours before the live Stardom Cast podcast starts. So we decided, hey, let's finish one thing. Let's check into the hotel, drop our bags. So this way we're good to go. We're in the hotel. It's a little bit after 6. I'm getting texts from Norm and from my friend Liz that I know through wrestling saying, you guys need to get down here as soon as possible because this place is packed with Stardom Cast fans. I'm like, the show doesn't start for another hour. I'm like, this is great. And I'm like, guys, are we good? Let's go. Because people are waiting there for us. So it did seem like a lot of the people that couldn't, a lot of our fans that already made prior, they were going to do something else. We're like, hey, we got to eat. Let's have a couple beers. Let's, show our support for Matt and Rob, which 1,000 thanks. Let's go to the show. So literally we walked in there, Bart. I don't need to tell you that you walked in with me. There was empty cans of Stardom Cast beer all over the place. It looked like 2 cases were already sold before we even walked in the door. People were eating, having a good time. People were cheering when we walked in. I'm like, this is a really good feeling. So we went. We had a Stardom Cast beer, which was phenomenal. It's been nothing but high praises. Great, great beer from our friends over at Funk Brewing. They did a great job, as always, on the Stardom Cast beer. We ordered our food. Sean is kind of scrambling around just to kind of make sure everything's all set up, to see if he needs to do anything. And I didn't, I haven't made mention of this to you until now, but I may as well use this, may as well talk about it now. But because the place was so packed and we knew that we did have, maybe 10 or 12 people leaving to go to other shows, I was going to think, let's start this podcast early. Let's eat. Let's get a drink or two in us. Let's start the podcast a little bit early because everybody's already here. Why keep them waiting? Plus, the people didn't think they would be able to see any signs of the show or any of the show. It's a treat to them. So that's what I was thinking. And then about 20 to 7, Sean comes to me and he's like, we need to go to Target. I said, what are you talking about? They don't have anything. I said, Sean, what are you talking about? He said, they don't have anything. They have literally nothing. I need to go back to my car to bring an amp because I left it in the car the other day, we locked down on that. Didn't have any microphones, nothing. I said, Sean, I thought this was all, and he kept apologizing. I know it wasn't his fault. And Sean is very big on his reputation. He's very big on helping us out in every aspect. Now I'm getting mad. It takes a lot to get me mad. Here's 2 main reasons why I'm mad. Number 1, we did our due diligence. Norm booked the bar. You did all the ad work, all the flyers, everything. So Norm took time to book the bar, make sure everything was okay. Sean crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's. If you need anything, I can bring it. No, we don't need anything. We're good to go. And then talked to them again, said, we don't need anything. We're good to go. Norm, who was there early to drop off some of his other beer and the tap for the drafts, said, hey, is there anything that my guys need to do? He's like, no, Sean was perfect. He was great, blah, 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 blah. Said person was leaving around 5 or 6 o'clock. If we need anything, call me, but I'm off for the day. No problem. Now they don't have anything. Now we have to scramble. So now not only can we not start early, we know this is going to start late, and I'm pissed. And you looked right at me, and our food just came. I told you what happened. You see how pissed I am, which it takes a lot to piss me off. And again, part of my language. And you pointed at me, and you pointed at the food, and you go, you eat. Like my dad would say when I was 6, 7 years old, which I think it's kind of comical now, kind of funny now. And again, we did all of our due diligence. We did all the advertising. We promoted the podcast, live podcast on this podcast, all over social media. Norm did the beer. Sean did his due diligence. Now, here's the thing that really, really ticks me off. Who benefited from this financially the most, Rob?
The bar.
The bar did. And what did they do? Nothing. They did nothing. Everybody was, even the people that said they couldn't stay, they still went there. They bought a beer. They took 6-packs. They took cases home. They bought food. They ate. And again, the food was fantastic. The cooks were great. The bartenders, the waitresses, everybody was great. They would have not been there if it was not for us. So they benefited majorly financially from this. And then they put us in a bad situation and did next to nothing to rectify it. So I do want to say, if I was short with anybody, any of the fans that came up, and I don't think I was, because I think I was able to put myself in a good situation, I apologize. I think I wound up buying a round of drinks for everybody, and then me and Norm started passing out Stardom Cast and Funk freebies. So again, if I came off as rude to anybody, I don't think I did, because I pride myself on being a good person. I apologize if I did. So even Norm, and here's another thing that I was kind of ticked me off. Even Norm, who pulled me aside. Now you have to understand, me and Norm met in our previous job. I was pretty high up on the corporate ladder. Norm was very high up on the corporate ladder. And Norm looked right at me and he said, "I can't believe you're letting this shake you." He's like, "This isn't the Matt that I know." I kind of live by a little bit of a saying that if it's not going to matter in 5 years, it's not worth more than 5 minutes bothering you. And this thing bothered me for about 20 or 30 minutes. The fact I couldn't shake this, I think it's because me, you, Norm, brewery, Sean put so much into this just for us to walk in and be like, yeah, everything we told you we have, we don't have anything. Now you have to go and fix the problem, and you're going to keep people here waiting. We're going to keep people here waiting. So it was about an hour by the time Sean realized that he needed to go get something to the time he came back. I don't think we started until 20 to 8. But you even said, my man, you did a great job calming me down. You said, once this starts, it's going to be fine. And it was. As soon as we sat down, the general idea was there was going to be 3 mics. I was going to have a mic, Rob was going to have a mic, and there was going to be a live mic in the crowd for Q&A. And Sean was like, "I got 1 mic. It's the best I can do." I'm like, "That's fine. We will figure it out." So I thought that once we sat down and started going, it was a home run, which I knew it was going to be. We were able to shake everything up, and it was great. Now, I know Sean has told me the story twice, and I apologize if I'm getting it wrong. Was it later that night or the next day? The person that Sean talked to that wasn't there, texted him a picture of all the equipment he needed that was in a box in the side room. That person said something to somebody that said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of it." Nothing was ever taken care of. Now, here is your lesson of the week from your Uncle MT. Say it all the time. Communication is key. Communication is key. So this person that we dealt with supposedly did her job. Nobody else just did theirs. So that kind of ticked me off. But again, questions we got to ask were great. I thought the atmosphere was great. We packed that place. It was loud. It was noisy. I think Sean was able to tell me that he was able to edit some of the background noise. I thought everything was great. I had an absolute blast. Other than that hiccup, which again ticked me off to no end because we did 99% of the leg work and they made a ton of money. But regardless, I had a phenomenal time.
Yeah. Apart from, let's call it a snafu. Let's go with a snafu. Yeah, apart from that, everything else went really well. We had a great time talking to everyone. Obviously, the more I needed to drink, I just had beers, which was potentially a bad choice, but there we are. But yeah, thank you to everyone that showed up, that stayed, and thank you to everyone that just came to say hi or just came to have a drink, and all those sorts of things. So we really, really, really do appreciate it. Again, like Matt mentioned, we'd got this all booked and all sorted in our heads, and very much not just in our heads. To our mind, this had been sorted. And actually, Norm said to you that morning, didn't he, that he'd rang the venue and the venue were like, "Yeah, it's all sorted. And we got there and there was a table and that was it. To the point where I thought there was another room we were doing it in. But that's by the by. If we do this
real quick, I just want to say how much Sean absolutely saved the day.
Oh, God,
I mean,
yes.
he went above and beyond. Even though he was only there with us for a handful of hours, he was there at the Stardom show, and I think he's only seen a handful of Stardom matches. He had an absolute blast. But Sean 100% saved the day again, literally as we were recording this podcast. And what we had to do to record is I had to take a spare phone that I had and he had to record it. And out of there, I said, can you get the audio out of this? And he's, I will make it work. And he literally texted me about an hour ago saying that he is making it work. So again, a million thanks goes to Sean, as he was definitely the savior of the day.
Yeah, and like I say, if Joshi Mania 2 will, Electric Boogaloo does happen, I think we'll sort our own equipment out, because, we were there an hour beforehand and we were still, 45 minutes late, almost an hour late in starting, because Sean was racing. Sean and Paul. I mean, Paul drove him around everywhere, so thank you to Paul for that as well. It was unnecessarily chaotic, but we managed to talk, obviously, Matt, about the Stardom show during the podcast, which was obviously the big thing to happen that day. We saw a title change, which I don't think anyone anticipated happening, but we also saw Micah and Megan Bayne put on one of the shows of the week, one of the matches of the week. A really, really, really good performance, and Megan Bayne really, really over, Matt.
Yeah, just about everybody on that show was. I mean, it was just insane, just the atmosphere that the ECW Arena gave, and they were loud from bell one until the very end, and they gave them a really, really solid show. Again, a lot of a lot of multi-person tags, which everybody was really, really over. And the main event, we knew it was going to deliver. That over-delivered. And again, we were in the crowd, and it was so jam-packed and so loud in that building that it is a match that we're definitely going to do for a live commentary. But I made mention, asked you the question on the live podcast we did just a few hours afterwards, if that was Megan Bayne's best performance. Obviously, she's had some great matches with Julia. She's had great tag matches with Micah. But I think me and you both agreed that was Megan Bayne's best performance to date. So, yeah, Megan Bayne insanely over with the passionate crowd at the ECW Arena.
Yeah, and you're right. That crowd was such a hot crowd for absolutely everything that was happening. I said I think it was either Plug or Jose. You could literally put a bin bag with Mayu Iwatani's face on it in the middle of the ring, and it would get over with that Philadelphia crowd. It was very, very loud, and every Stardom wrestler, including some surprising names, were over like Rover. The official attendance for that show in the 2300 Arena from the 4th of April was 976. Now, you've already said, Matt, that you've been to the 2300 Arena, the ECW Arena before, and you think that's lowballing it. You'd be amazed if it's, short of 1,000. But the card itself, I know that there were some people who were disappointed with the amount of matches and with the talent that were left off. Particularly Hazuki and Hanan and Natsupoi were the ones that were sort of pointed out in particular. However, and this was something I thought about a little bit more as we were stressing about amps and things. This week, we went to 7 shows. We watched over 40 matches. This is a time, WrestleMania week is a time where people's time is at a premium. So if you're doing 4-hour shows, people aren't going to stay for the entire thing because it clashes with other things people want to see. You are far more likely to draw a bigger crowd during Mania week with a shorter card so that they can see that and then go to the next thing than they are going, I haven't got time to do that because it's 3.5 hours long or there's 12 matches or whatever. So actually, yes, you could argue that the middle of this card, aside from the high-speed title and aside from the Red Belt match, was filler. But actually, again, you heard how over people were. Momo Watanabe was the most over person in Philadelphia, which is crazy. Azumi and Saya Kamatani, massively. Momo Kogo is the one that always surprises me because Momo Kogo, bless her, has had an absolutely dreadful run with injuries. Dreadful. She's constantly having to deal with Graves' disease. So, incredible strength. But she is someone who is at the lower end of the card. Even she was over. She was announced for a match at Ring of Honor. She came out. The crowd loved her. So, yes, we didn't get wall-to-wall title matches. Yes, aside from the World of Stardom title match, probably nothing on this card will be remembered apart from the fact that Saki Kashima is a 2-time high-speed champion, which I don't think anyone saw coming. I don't think will be remembered. However, for those in attendance, those memories will be some that stay with them for the rest of their lives. 100%. You ask me in 10, 12 months, are you more upset that Hazuki wasn't on the show? Or are you happy that you saw a Stardom show, you saw a Red Belt match, and you had an absolute blast? It's obviously going to be the former because, no, it's the latter. I had the Stardom experience. I experienced the incredible atmosphere in there. So, yes, I can understand people's disappointment that some of the main card weren't there. However, you still had Mayu. You still had Tam. You still had Mina Shirakawa. You still had Micah, the Red Belt champion. We saw a Red Belt title defense. We didn't see that in New York in 2019. So, overall, I thought Stardom did a very good job on this card. We got the Stardom experience. Obviously, we talked a little bit, Matt. We all expected Micah to retain, which she did in 14 minutes and 22 seconds, with the hammerlock version of her of a Michinoku driver. But there was a spot, and the spot I'm going to talk about, that second row Michinoku driver, which the entire ECW arena went absolutely ballistic for. I don't think it's Micah's best match ever, but I would argue it's probably top 5. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That's a good shout. I would probably say, the wipeout match with Kamatani is probably number 1. Just below that is Utami, the red belt match that we saw just a few weeks ago. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely up there. Again, it's a match that I would love. And I'm probably not going, I'm going to say it right now, we're doing it for an alternate commentary for the month of May. So, and I'm not going to go back and watch until me and you go back. I'm not going to watch until me and you do the alternate commentary for it, just because I want to keep it kind of fresh from the camera angle. But I mean, she's doing a phenomenal job with that red belt. Great match against Suzuki to win it. Great match with with Sai Kamatani on her first defense at the anniversary show. Oh, again, one of the best matches of her career with Utami back at the Cinderella final, and then this one with Megan Bain, and then obviously we have the again we talked about in the live podcast, but I mean on the ECW Arena we got the challenge for the big show, the big Yokohama Buntai show with Momo Watanabe, which you thought when Momo Watanabe was coming out, it was like John Cena coming out. Again, Momo Watanabe's a heel. She's a cheating heel. All these big wins she's getting in these multi-person tag matches against Saya, against Shiri, against Utami, she's cheating. And she comes out and is just so loved because she's such a great wrestler. She's such a great worker. And again, you talked about how over Azumi and Saya Kamatani were, and they were like literally almost taken aback by how, the crowd reaction. They were, that was the very first match. Excuse me, that was the second match. The first match was the freeway for the high speed championship. But like Saya and Azumi looked at each other like, holy jeez, like this place is absolutely nuts. And obviously Azumi is doing quite a bit of work here in the States. We mentioned she's taking on Steph Facker this weekend in Chicago. Saya Kamatani has been very adamant she wants to come back to the States. And again, we're gonna get into it. Judging by her autograph line at the first day of WrestleCon, they absolutely love Saya Kamatani. So yeah, I think you're going to see some more Stardom participants in some, whether it's an AEW show, whether it's a Ring of Honor show, whether it's doing a random, GCW show from time to time. I think you're definitely going to see them. But yeah, it was a very loud reaction from match 1 up until the main event at the ECW Arena. That's for darn sure.
And obviously the other thing that happened was we talked about Isaki Kashima becoming a 2-time high-speed champion, or low-speed champion, should I say, but also becoming your friend Norm's favourite wrestler of all time, I think. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about Mei Seira. Ended her reign at 178 days, 4 successful title defenses, including that fantastic time limit draw against Hazuki. We talked a little bit about why this might have happened. May was a double champion. We're heading into the Yokohama Buntai. They will want to top load that show with as many title matches as they can. If Mei Seira is the high-speed champion and one half of the Goddess of Stardom champions with Crazy Star, they're not going to have May pull double duty, I wouldn't have thought. So it's easier to take the title off her. However, what I was going to ask you, Matt, because we do talk about this in a little bit more detail on the live podcast, so I don't want to cover too much of that ground again. But how do you think about the way this run ended? Because we sort of built Mei Seira up as, the linchpin of this high-speed division. We sort of built up that Saki was ducking May, refusing to wrestle her until eventually she was given that chance and May won. Do you feel like this is sort of an anticlimactic finish to May Sarah? Do you think that she will win it back after the Yokohama Buntai? What are your thoughts on this title change?
I think they just wanted to kind of shock the crowd, and shock they did because there's nobody expecting, including I was right next to you, and I thought your head was going to explode. And I was like, man, we got 4 days of this, and we're only about 5 minutes in, and your voice was shot right there. And I think it was just done maybe kind of just, as a little bit of a shock. I do think that they're going to have Saki Kashima have a successful title defense at the Yokohama Buntai show, and then probably sometime in May or June go right back to May Sarah, because she's been having some fantastic matches with the High Speed Championship. And Saki, even on her first run, she was somebody completely different, than an Azumi, than a Natsupoi, than a Starlight Kid with the High Speed Championship, and more the comedic thing where May Sarah, fills more of the role of the, flag bearer of the High Speed division. So I think going back to Saki Kashima is kind of a funny thing to do, something that nobody expected. Was nowhere, nobody was offended by it. And again, when Norm said he wanted to go to the Stardom show, I told him, I said, you'll be blown away by Azumi, by Starlight Kid, by Shuri, and the fact that he came out of that show, and he was, don't get me wrong, the fact he came out of that show and Saki Kashima was his favorite Stardom wrestler just goes to show that everybody has a difference of opinion, and the fact that Saki Kashima was able to kind of grasp straws at Norm. And Norm's a big wrestling fan. He's been watching NWA, WWF, WCW, AEW. He's a big American wrestling fan. Doesn't know too much in the Japanese scene, but Saki Kashima was his cup of tea that day. So she got a new fan in one Norm. So again, it was a surprise. They got a really, really big pop. And May Sarah doesn't lose anything on it, and not only that, but now she can maybe put her complete focus into the tag division from now until whenever they decide to put the belt back on her, the High Speed Championship. If that's the way they go. So Crazy Star, obviously Suzu and May is a phenomenal tag team. And I think you're going to see a really, really good run with the two of them as the Goddess of Stardom tag team champions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they prioritize a big Goddess of Stardom title match at the Yokohama Buntai more than they prioritize a big high-speed championship match, which, fair enough. But, it was interesting that you highlighted the champions prior to Saki's first run was Azumi, Starlight Kid, Natsupoi, and then Azumi's first run. So we've had there 4 reigns where you've got high-speed, just action for the entirety of the 10, 12 minutes the matches were going. So, yeah, Saki was certainly a breath of fresh air by being that comedic heel. And I think the way she won this match in all the confusion with Ram using the powder, I think that it does sort of build into her character. A little bit confusing live because I thought it was a mistake, and I think you thought it was a mistake as well. But looking back on it, I think it's all to do with the Yokohama Buntai. So moving on, we then decided after all the chaos that was the Stardom show and the Stardom Cast live show, we decided we were going to take in another show, Matt, didn't we? Because we are absolute animals, and apparently that was what we wanted to do. So we went to the GCW versus the World show. Now, just before I left to come to America, it was announced that Shuri was going to be doing a signing from 10:30 till 12. So sure enough, myself, Matt, and Paul all showed up to GCW at 10 past 11, and Shuri was gone. They'd shut her signing, which is incredibly disappointing, but not the end of the world because we did see her on the Friday. Sorry. But
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, man, you go for it.
No, finish what you have to say. I apologize. Go ahead.
It's all right. So we then went into the show. Bearing in mind, this is the show that starts at 11:59. We are all exhausted by this point, and there's some great talent on this card. There really, really is. However, the match we were there for, Masha Slamovich versus Shuri for the JCW title, all of us were desperately hoping it wasn't going to be the main event because I really did not want to be there until 2:30. I was exhausted. Bearing in mind I haven't recovered from my jet lag yet. We've just had all the stress with the Stardom Gas Live episode. I was, oh God, please. Thankfully it wasn't. It was third. We also got to see former Stardom talent Session Moth Martina lose to Griffin McCoy in 7 minutes and 50 seconds. But the match we're going to talk about, Masha Slamovich, Shiori, JCW title on the line. It's a bold company that books a 30-minute time limit draw at 1:10 in the morning. However, Matt, they were completely justified in that decision, where at 1:10 in the morning, this match got a standing ovation.
Yeah, let me kind of back things up a little bit. So, yeah, it was announced that Sherry was be doing an autograph session probably as you were getting into the airport from 10:30 to 12. Now, we knew we were doing the 3-day autograph session with the Stardom wrestlers at WrestleCon, as well as, not 2-day, as well to Spark Joshi. Now, they were both autograph sessions were very adamant that they're only signing the pictures that they bring. Like, you see them kind of online quite a bit. So we were and we made mention last week, we're a little disappointed because we have a lot of really cool stuff we want to get signed. Like, Rob has his book he wants to get signed. I have covers of Weekly Pro Wrestling magazine that I want to get signed. I have really cool artwork that my daughter Lily has drawn for me. If you remember, she has a really awesome picture. You can see it for anybody that's subscribed to any of our video Patreon. That's behind, it's on my wall, my podcast room, that she did of Aphrodite for Christmas for me for last year, that I had Utami sign. And even Utami said, you need to have Kamatani sign this, which we'll get into in the site, Kamatani signing. So we thought, okay, well, nobody else is, and I get it. They probably want to move people out of there. So the Sherry thing just said it was a signing. So I told Rob, I said, this might be the opportunity for us to get a whole bunch of stuff signed, because we can only get the one thing signed that they offer and get the picture, which is fine. I understand. We can get a whole bunch of stuff from Sherry signed. So I thought that was going to be a really cool opportunity. Now, before we got to the GCW versus the World show, Paul decided last minute he wanted to go to the show. I said, okay, no problem. So he jumped in the car with us. Tickets were $40 for standing room only. However, because the show was less than an hour away from starting, they wouldn't let him buy the ticket online, so he was going to have to buy a ticket at the door. So I said, no problem. Now, keep in mind, here comes our another snafu of the evening, is as we're getting close to the venue, we're looking for a name on this venue. And now it's a little bit after 11. It's dark out. It's in Philadelphia. We can't find the venue, but my GPS says for me to make a hard right or hard left. I
forgot about this.
I make a hard left where it tells me to make a hard left, but I guess I made too hard of a left because I wind up getting us into train tracks, which I think was a trolley track in the middle of the road. Now, I realize that as soon as I make the left, because my car starts to like sway. I'm like, this isn't a road. And my buddy Paul, and you have to understand, he's so funny. His sense of humor and his timing is so good. He goes, brother, we're on train tracks. It was the way he said it and how he said it, I thought was hilarious. It was so, and then all of a sudden there's a giant dip that if I hit it going more than 5 miles an hour, probably would have blown out the oil pan and the tires. However, I was able to get out of the way. I got out of the train tracks. I made a left, and then I realized I was like, I made too hard of a left. It was supposed to be that left. So the fact that I almost rolled the car on the way to the show, I thought was hilarious. We get in to the autograph session about 10 after 11, quarter after 11, and people are coming up to us like, hey, big fans of the podcast. I'm like, thank you so much. Where Sherry's signing. Like, she was signing over there, but I saw her leave like 5 or 10 minutes ago, and it was just an empty table. So it was like, why are you advertising a signing for 10:30 to 12 if they're only going to stay for 30, 40 minutes of it? So that was a little bit disappointing. I didn't know what she was signing or whatever, but I was like, whatever. That's the whole reason why we left early. Now, poor Paul, not only did he have to buy a ticket, he wanted to buy a ticket for $40, but they weren't accepting credit cards. You had to get cash. He didn't have any cash on him. And I wish he would have just came to me. I would have gave him the cash. But he went to an ATM that charged him $10. So he paid $50.
No way. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So he paid $50 for this ticket. Then he went in and got a beer, and the show was advertised as Sherry and Masa Slamovich on the main event, to the point that where they had the collective is a beautiful building. The point where they had a banner with Sherry and Masa Slamovich on it for GCW versus the World. So I was like, this is going to be the main event. This is a long, long night. But I'm like, whatever. It is what it is. And then the second match gets out of the ring. And then they show the video of Sherry versus Masa Slamovich. And you're like, dude, I think this match is third. And then I realized that before anybody comes out, they are very adamant That is a 30-minute time limit on
How
this.
many times did they say that in the lead on that?
I don't think they did, and if they did, they didn't. Maybe they made it said this match scheduled for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. Or this is a 30-minute time limit. Now it's for the JCW Jersey Championship Wrestling Championship. Masa Slamovich is not losing this belt to somebody that is probably not coming back. Bushiroad is probably not having Shuri do the JOB to somebody that is not. Masa Slamovich is great, but probably to a non-contracted Stardom wrestler. So about 5 minutes in, they're very much Utami Shuri pacing it. And I looked over at you. I'm like, this is going 30. I said, I can tell by the pacing, this is going 30. And the crowd was tired after the first match because the first match did all the moves. There was no up and down. It was just all up. It was very indie-rific, which is fine. That's kind of some way some of these indies are. And the second match, they were kind of quiet for. And then this match, they were kind of up and down for. And then once they hit the 30-minute time limit, instead of booing like how we usually do in the States because there's no clear winner, very much like how we did versus Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson. Like, why would you boo that we just got a 30-minute match between these two? It was a standing ovation at about 1:15. So I already knew what I wanted to do. However, Paul just dropped $50 to get here about an hour earlier and then just paid $7 or $8 for a beer. I said, brother, you tell me what you want to do. I said, if you want to stay, I will stay. If Rob wants to go, I'll call him an Uber. I said, I will stay. And he's like, what do you guys want to do? I said, that was the only match we came for. And he's like, let me finish my beer and go. I said, are you sure? He's like, yeah, dude, I didn't want to be in the hotel room. Kind of want to hang out with you guys, watch the wrestling, have a beer. I said, you good? He's like, that match alone was worth my $50. And I was like, all right. And then we got out of there. And then that was the end of night one. Technically, I guess day two, because it was a little bit after 1. We got a handful of hours of sleep. And then we were up early the next day for WrestleCon day 1. Now, I do have to say this. As I was getting out of the gym and going to breakfast, I ran into, at the counter, super fan of ours, one Chrissy Roman. Chrissy is such a huge supporter of this show. Anytime new stickers come out, she always purchases the stickers from us. She's a huge supporter of everything that we do. She was at the Big Business show in Boston with Mercedes Moné. If you remember on the pre-tape, they had the Mina Ring of Honor match with Anna Jay. She was kind enough to provide us notes. So I was like, I was like, hey, Chrissy, what's going on? She's like, I'm just trying to figure out a ride for WrestleCon. She's like, I hate to ask, but could you come with me? Can I go with you guys? Now, we had 4 people in the car. I drive an SUV. It's a smaller SUV. But God bless Chrissy. She's all like as big as Starlight Kid. So I'm like, I'm sure we can probably fit you in my car. I said, you need to be down here no later than 8 o'clock because the bus is leaving no later than 8 o'clock. And brother, you know how much of I am a stickler for time. She showed up at 7:50 and I was like, come on in. So it was nice hanging out with her. She was an absolute blast. She was so kind and so helpful with stuff. So we got in. You literally, as we walked into the venue, you almost shoulder tackled Ted DiBiase, which I thought was great and funny because you had no idea that was the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. We went and got our 3-day bracelets, and then we waited in line for the first autograph session.
We did indeed. I had no idea that it was Ted DiBiase. I pretty much just walked, just gung-ho straight through him. Thankfully missed him. But yes, very, very awkward, but there we are. So on the Friday of WrestleCon, which was a really cool experience, I'll be honest. And I was talking to Andy, who was a Discord member and someone who was very, very kind enough to stay with me whilst I was getting DDP's signature. So thank you, Andy. I would name everyone by name, but I don't want to run the risk of missing someone out. So I'm trying not to mention everyone so that I don't accidentally offend someone. But you know who you are if you came and said hello to us and were nice to us and stuff like that. So thank you to all of you. Andy was standing with me in the queue, and I turned around and said, "This is unlike anything I've seen." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, everyone is so nice. Like, there was no pushing in to get signatures. There was no like animosity. There was no aggression. It was just a case of everything was really, really, really chill." And like I said, I lined up for DDP so he could sign my Monday Night Wars book, which he did. He was lovely, really cool man, DDP. Shout out to the guy in front of us who has lost a shed load of weight with DDP yoga. Well done, my friend. Excellent work. But even in the Stardom queues, like, it was so well organized. Shout out to the lady who was sorting out all the tickets for both days because she was fantastic. But on the Friday, so we met Azumi and Starlight Kid first. No, we didn't. We met Azumi and Saya Kamatani. We also met Starlight Kid and Momo Watanabe. And we also met Shiori and Saki Kashima. So that was the Friday. And there were obviously...
Let's go through each meeting. That's what everybody asked for. So again, they had their own room, which I thought was great. Everything else was, again, I go to New York Comic Con every year. I've never been to a WrestleCon before. It's very much like that. And again, with the Comic Cons, sometimes you don't know what a Jason Aaron looks like. You don't know what Jeff John looks like because it's not them, their picture that's on the comic. It's Thor or Green Lantern or whatever. You know what these wrestlers look like. And again, as much as I love comics, wrestling is my number one passion. So it's really cool as you're kind of just looking down on the main floor. You're watching Axe and Smash and Demolition come in. You're seeing Lex Luger come in. Obviously, Lex has had health problems, so he's on a scooter. But he's such a spiritual guy and really turned his life around to the Lord, which I love. And he was just all smiles to see everybody. You're seeing all this talent come in. You're seeing Tennille Dashwood come in. You're seeing DDP coming in. So it was really, really cool. But yeah, Stardom had their own room. And again, as we're waiting in queue, so many people came up to us. Rob literally had a gentleman came in and was just like, I bought both your books. Can I have you sign it? Rob's like, this, I've never signed books before. So it was, and I took a picture and put it all over social media. I'm like, this is Rob's first time he's ever signing these books. And I thought it was really cool. It was in line for these Stardom meet and greets. And even people would come up to us and be like, hey, this is the line for the Stardom wrestlers. We're like, yeah. And it got to a point where people were like, is this the line to meet people from the Stardom cast? And I'm like, just comment while we're waiting, take pictures. We'll sign what you need to sign. We'll chat with you, which again, I thought was really, really cool. So yeah, the first meeting was, the Queen's Quest members, Azumi and Saya Kamatani. So it's just like, for me, I'm sure for everybody, but for me, because Queen's Quest is my favorite faction of all of wrestling, it's a great way to start off the event. And I was wearing my custom made Stardom cast Saya Kamatani shirt, with the green background. And it did say on the tickets that they are not customizing any photos. So Azumi was my first meet and greet, and she just signed. And then I realized everybody was showing the phone with your name on it to everybody afterwards. So I did put a big picture collage of everybody that I met with signatures. And Azumi, other than we met her at Spark, is the only one that doesn't have my name because I'm a fan of I follow the rules. You're telling me this is what time you need to be, this is what you can and can't do, no problem. I'm not here to disrupt anything. So that Azumi one, because it was the first signature, was the one that didn't have my name on it because they said right on the ticket, do not ask to personalize anything. So I didn't until everybody else was doing it. I was like, oh, okay, they're fine with that, no problem. So Azumi did put over how much she loved my shirt. Same thing with Saya Kamatani. Realizing just how short Azumi is, but an absolute sweetheart of a person. You could tell she was struggling with the English language, but she's trying, especially the fact I think she'd be wrestling here in the States a little bit more. And Saya Kamatani was just lovely. A little bit taller. The reason why we kind of call her Tall Saya. She's a little bit shorter than me, but probably, other than Micah, probably the tallest of the wrestlers, Stardom wrestlers that we met. And she put over my shirt and said how much she absolutely loved it. And I did show her the photo of when Lily made me for Christmas last year of her and Utami as Aphrodite with Utami's signature. And she did say, again, her English was pretty good. She did say, I said, when I met Utami last year, said she signed it here, and she said, oh, I love it. And she did tell me I have to have Kamatani sign. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't sign. I'm like, no, I know. And she goes, oh, I love Utami. She's like, I go, so do I. She goes, oh, now you're going to make me cry. I'm like, no, Saya, I don't want to make you cry. You cried enough on the last show. But again, the two of them on a scale of 1 to 10 were both like a 15. Absolutely great time on that autograph session. How about you, buddy? What was your experience?
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there. I think just as a whole, every single Stardom wrestler took the time to be really personable with you and make it feel like it was a personalized experience. Now, obviously, I know that Spark couldn't be like that. And, that's fair enough. I get that. That's fine. But WrestleCon, I felt like, there was a bit of time that you could spend chatting to the different wrestlers. Saya Kamatani was probably my second favorite meet and greet simply because she was just so lovely. Like, she just genuinely looked like all of them looked like they loved being there. But Saya just seemed like proper, like in a candy store, that sort of excited. She was so sweet. We were in the room when Azumi and Saya Kamatani walked in. And Azumi, we thought, was limping, and we were like, "Oh my God, she's injured. She's got Ring of Honor tonight. What is going on? Stardom can't catch a break. What is going?" Turns out, no, she was just wearing sliders because all of the wrestlers came in their gear, and Azumi's kick pads were slightly too big, so she was basically having to shuffle with these bright yellow sliders on. But yeah, she was lovely as well. But yeah, Saya Kamatani up there is probably my second favorite meet and greet of the entire day. We then had Saki Kashima and Syurima, and you managed to pop Syuri.
Yeah, and again, I thought that was great. They did come in their gear. I thought, because Azumi and Sai were in their gear, and I thought, well, maybe they're going over to Ring of Honor to do promos, but Syuri and Sai Kamatani weren't. So I thought it was great. It reminded me when I met Chris Evans at Comic-Con last year, and I told Lily, I said, I mean, Chris Evans, the guy that plays Captain America, and I showed her the picture. But that's awesome, but why isn't he in his Captain America outfit? And I'm like, well, they never are. She's like, well, I know him as Captain America. You paid all this. So I thought about that. I'm like, that's cool. Like, it's one thing to meet one of the wrestlers, but like, especially Stardom, their gear is top notch. And I thought it was that little extra. They didn't have to do that. I thought it was that little extra that they all showed up in their gear to get the photos with, which just made it that much better. So yeah, and again, I asked Rob, a minute ago, how was your experience? Me and Rob were right next to each other, so and he graciously let me go ahead of him each one. Saki Kashima I thought was great. You got your picture taken with the high speed championship, so I thought that was good. But then Sherry, and what was cool is majority of the wrestlers let you do like 2 or 3 poses. So it's like, okay, we'll do, and you've probably seen us post it. Like there's a couple with Tam, we're doing the bi-poi and then the cutie face and this or that. They let you do a couple poses. So I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. You're getting more than one pose. So Sherry signs my thing. And then as she goes to get up, I'm like, hey, Sherry, can you put me in a double wrist lock? And her eyes got really big. And then the whole crowd, she goes, no. And everybody that was in there popped really good. I thought that was good. So I'm just kidding. So me and Sherry, I think we did like just a regular fight pose and like I think the DDM pose. But I thought that was funny when it was funny. I literally caught her right at the right time as she got done signing. She just started standing up. Like, can you put me in? I even like fed her my arm. Again, I know a decent amount of catch wrestling, so I know how the double wrist locks goes. I fed her my arm for the double wrist lock, and she looked at me and her eyes got big. No. I'm like, I'm just joking. I'm not going to. No one's getting put any double wrist locks. But if she said yes, I wouldn't have said no. But I thought that was a really cool little thing from Sherry, because Sherry is one of my favorite wrestlers because of that shoot style that she does.
I love the fact that you basically started a shoot fight with Fury, one of the hardest people. Like, that was something that I noticed. Like, again, we're not going to talk about height the entire time because that's a really dull topic of conversation. But because we're so used to like the imperious nature of like a Fury, who so many people tell us is the hardest striker in Stardom, it was so weird to see how like small and sort of not petite, but you get my sort of drift with that. That she was so like, she was lovely, absolutely lovely, seemed very, very humble, but you know for a fact that she could kick your head clean off your shoulders for a 2-point conversion, like without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, both women absolutely lovely. Saki Kashima is hilarious. Has pretty good English, to be fair, Saki. But yeah, then we actually met Mariah May as well, who apparently has listened to the podcast. So if you are listening, hello, Mariah. And who had reappeared at the Stardom show, where we had Tony Storm randomly show up to apparently set up Mina versus Tony Storm for Forbidden Door, which we didn't really touch on in this podcast, but we touch on a little bit more in the on the live podcast. But she was also really, really nice. Like Mariah May, you know, you've all seen Mariah May, she's gorgeous. We expected her to be like, you know, sort of, right, sign, you know, hi, how are you? And then, you know, be nice, but sort of try and get through everyone. We managed, I don't know if we just managed to catch her at a good time, because she hadn't actually got a queue of many people at all. But even though she had still got a queue, she was taking so much time to talk to people. Like, she must have spent 10, 15 minutes talking to us. It was really, really nice. Again, really, really, really personal. Her signature was, it's not just a to Rob Mariah May, all of the stuff that she did was really, really nice. And she seemed genuinely sort of humbled by her experience in Stardom and seemed to thoroughly enjoy her time with Stardom, always speaks of it in the highest of regards. And even though she wasn't technically a member of that meet and greet, I thought meeting Mariah May was ace, Matt.
Yeah, she was fantastic. And kudos to Paul, because I was like, hey, buddy, can you, my buddy Paul, can you take the photo that we do with Mariah May? And I had her sign my program of the last year's 5-Star Grand Prix, as well as a weekly pro wrestling magazine cover of Club Venus of her, Zaya Brookside, and Mina Shirakawa. So she did make mention. No, I'm sorry, it was Zaya Brookside. The next day she made mention that they are the first trio of foreign girl. Her and Mariah May are the first 2 foreign females to be on the cover of Weekly Pro Wrestling magazine. I did not know that until Zaya Brookside told me. I believe it was the next day. So Mariah May did say, and I hope I'm not outing anybody here, she did say how much she loves Zaya Brookside, but how disappointed she was that she messed up the Club Venus dance the night before. So she's like, what is she doing? So I thought that was funny. She did make mention that, again, it's Mariah May, when they had the 2 blocks, the blue block and the red block. I said, if you could have anybody from the other block come over to wrestle you, who would have been? And without even a blink of an eye, she said Natsupoi. She goes, I really wanted a big one-on-one match with Natsupoi. She's fantastic. And then I went to my usual, putting over my buddy Paul. He was taking the photos, and then Mariah May starts cutting promos on Mercedes Moné out of nowhere. So Paul switched it over to video. I didn't get a chance to watch the video yet. I was going to maybe put it up on YouTube, but I don't want to use it without her permission. So that might be something I might just throw up on Twitter, maybe something that I might just share with just a couple people. She's cutting promos on this person, that person, and Paul got them all on video, which I thought was great. And then my go-to question that I asked was, who is the hardest hitter in Stardom? Now, if you remember our interview from Jessie, she said Sherry, where Mariah May said, no, it wasn't Sherry, that it was a tie between Julia and Mayu Iwatani, which I thought that was really cool that we had a difference in opinion on that. And then I met Deonna Purrazzo the next day too, and I asked her the same question, because she was saying she would love, with the current relationship with AEW and Stardom, that she would love to do another tour with Stardom. And then she said the hardest hitter in Stardom when she was there was one Hazuki, our beloved Hazuki. So it's nice getting a difference of opinion. But yeah, Mariah May, very much like all the Stardom wrestlers, was on a scale of 1 to 10 was a 15. I'm not going to spoil it. That was not the only time that we did not go up and close and personal with the line cutter that is Mariah May. I'm going to get into that in just a moment, but now unless you have anything else you want to go to the very next day, which had our meeting with Mayu and Cam and whatnot.
We'll do that, and then we'll go into obviously the Ring of Honor show, which was the Friday as well. But let's get all the WrestleCon bits out of the way in one go. So that was Friday. Saturday, we had an incredibly busy day, because obviously we had NXT Stand and Deliver 2024 and the first night of WrestleMania to do as well. But we had Mayu, Momokogo, Mina, and Micah Maceira, and I'm missing someone. Who am I missing?
Tam Nakano.
And Tam Nakano, of course. How could I forget? The Twilight Dream herself. We obviously had all those meet and greets as well, so it was an incredibly busy day. It is worth noting, by the way, that we also met Taro Okada, who seemed like a really just nice guy, like a proper down-to-earth guy. He was there for every single one of the signings. He was taking pictures. He was holding people's stuff. It's like, this is the president of Bushi Road Fight. And then you got Daichi Moriyama, who, what a legend that guy is. Like, underrated. Like, the amount of work that he does. What a guy. He was super nice to us, Daichi was. Really, really nice guy. Both at Spark and at the WrestleCon show. He was always super, super nice. So thank you. But yeah, so we got there, lined up immediately for Mayu and Momokogo. It was actually, and I didn't realize this till afterwards, Matt, it was Momokogo's birthday while we were there. And I didn't know that till afterwards. So sorry, Momokogo, if you are listening, that I didn't wish you a happy birthday, because I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know that too until I think the next day. But yeah, we'll kind of go through the WrestleCon things, and then we'll kind of circle back. Well, I do want to talk about the meeting of me and one Necro Butcher as well. So don't make me forget that. And I also, again, I put this out on Twitter, and I know I'm going to forget. We do have to talk about me running into a certain legend at the hotel time and time again.
Oh my God.
But anyway, yeah, but I guess, yeah, I mean, we're all here, so let's talk about the meet and greets. I know a lot of people want to ask about that. So day number 2 was the biggest day for Rob. I know the thing he was looking forward to the most, other than meeting my cat Ace, was meeting one Mayu Iwatani. Mayu and Momo Kogo were the very first signing that day. So again, we came in, checked in. Rob did not knock over any wrestling legends that day. So all good. We're waiting in line for one Mayu. Now, I did realize that my Saya Kamatani t-shirt did. Oh, wait, we got to talk about Wedo Tai. We got to talk about Starlight Kid and Momo Watanabe.
Oh, what are we doing?
What
are we doing?
Yeah, the reason why is because I'm wearing my bright green Saigon. It's a custom made shirt. Can't buy it anywhere. Saya Kamatani shirt. And Starlight Kid, who was so nice, and her English was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And she did a couple poses, and she made mention how much she loved my shirt. Momo Watanabe, who is my favorite member of Queen's Quest of all time. Yes, I know Iyo founded the group. Iyo was only there about a year or so before she left for WWE, but Momo was in there for 3 years. So when I went up to Momo, she looked at my shirt and said, "Oh, Kamatani," and shook her head in disapproval. The first photo we took was me doing the Queen's Quest pose, and she goes, "No, Queen's Quest, no, Queen's Quest." I said, "Come on, Momo." I said, "You got to leave a Wedo tag. Go back to Queen's Quest." She goes, "Queen's Quest is dead." And I was like, "Oh, all right."
Whoa.
And then, yeah. And then I go, "Who kicks harder, you or Sherry?" Right? And she goes, "Ha, ha, ha." Like a very evil, villain laugh. And then she goes, "Sherry." And I thought that was I just thought that was absolutely great. But yeah, Starlight Kid was great. Absolutely love my shirt. Momo totally healed me on the shirt. Told me how much Queen's Quest was dead, and then admitted that Sherry is the hardest hitter in all of Stardom.
I love the fact that she was like, as if you need to ask, it's Sherry.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was something that that was picked up at the actual Stardom American Dream Show, was just how loud Momo Watanabe's kicks were. Because she was actually only on the one show. And I think, was she the only wrestler that was on one show? No, Saya Kamatani. Oh, no, she was on Ring of Honor.
Saki Kashima. I think just Saki Kashima.
Yes. Well, Saki was at GCW supporting Siri, but that doesn't count. Yeah, how weird. But yes, so I thought Starlight Kid was lovely. She doesn't seem to think that her English is that good. It is far better than she thinks it is. And Momo was great as well. Didn't bring the baseball bat, so was absolutely devastated. Her gear, by the way, I didn't appreciate just how intricate it was until I got up close and, could see it better. It looks really cool. She was another one who took me by surprise with just how small she was. But again, I'm not just going to talk about height. So, that being said, we now move to Saturday and meeting Mayu and Momo Kogo. Obviously, meeting Mayu was a huge thing to tick off the bucket list. She was absolutely lovely, really, really, really personable, spent loads of time sort of talking and chatting with everyone. Again, I was under the impression that her English was supposed to be quite broken, but I thought she did really well with her English, Matt. I thought her English was actually a lot better than some of the other Stardom wrestlers, which surprised me.
Yeah, she was very good, very personable. Even some of the pictures that I took, if you take it on, I don't know about any other phone. I have an iPhone. I've only had an iPhone for the past 10 years. But these newer iPhones, if you press the picture, it's like a live photo. So I kind of went back on some of the pictures and pressed. And everyone, with me and Mayu, she was laughing, smiling, just like the lovable Mayu that you see on TV. That's just the way that she is. Again, she was in her gear. She had the IWGP Women's Championship. So you got the picture kind of with the belt. Which, again, I know this wasn't, again, Rob was an absolute gentleman. He's like, "No, Matt, by all means, you go ahead of me." That didn't matter. We were, it was a minute later, but that he was going. But I realized when I turned around to grab my autograph photo in my bag that Rob, and I happen to have my phone in my hand because obviously that's where the photo came from. I had my phone in my hand, and as Rob was walking up, I was like, I have to record this, right? And I was like, it didn't say that you can or can't record. I know they may not want you, but I'm like, whatever. I'm going to bend the rules. If somebody says something, I'll stop. And Daichi was standing right by me, and I recorded the whole 55 second interaction of Rob and Mayu as he walked up until the point where he walked up to me, and I sent it to you, and I think that you posted it up on Twitter. So I was really glad that I was able to capture that for you, because I know that how much that meant to you. Meeting, it's just some of that's a huge inspiration to you and Mayu Iwatani. I think it's, she's pretty much one of everybody's favorite wrestlers. If you know your stuff, there's not anybody that dislikes Mayu. Even if she's not your favorite wrestler, she's like, 2 or 3. Everybody just has so much respect for Mayu. The fact that she's such a nice person, such a sweetheart, that she was having such a great time. And, it really meant a lot for me to get that for you. Because, again, I know you were traveling all this way over here, despite all the rain, despite passport security, despite me almost throwing us into a ditch the night before. I figured the least I can do is take the video of that for you. So, yeah, Mayu was absolutely fantastic. And, again, Momo Kogo, she was terrific. Her English is really, really good. And the fact that she's so over with the American crowd, I think that's somebody that whenever they do some sort of tour of the States, I think Momo Kogo's just need to come on every tour.
Yeah, and I was talking to, obviously, thank you for filming the Mayu stuff. That was great. Not necessarily just from a wrestling standpoint, the fact that she, the things she's overcome to where she is now is such an inspirational story. It's, it really is quite incredible. But, I was talking to Mayu, I said, like, you're a hero of mine, you're a massive inspiration. Daichi then came up to me, patted me on the shoulder and went, Kawhi, right? I was like, Daichi, what you doing, mate? Come on. So I thought that was really funny. But yeah, Momo Kogo was lovely. Obviously, she had just had a rather hastily announced pre-show match against Mariah May on the 0 hour of Supercard of Honor, and sort of chatted with her about how over she was with the American crowd, and she was super happy. And I was like, I think Taro Okada was there at the time, and I was like, we're going to see more Momo Kogo in America, and he did just nod and said, yeah, absolutely. So hopefully that's something we're going to see more of, a little bit more Momo Kogo in the US, because she is obviously a huge draw in America, bless her. But yes, I'd argue that meeting Armani Shoe Exchange and meeting Mayu were probably tied first. For my experiences of WrestleMania week.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy.
It's all right, mate. Don't you worry about it.
Appreciate it.
I joke. Meeting Ace was number 1. So we then had Tam and Micah. Was that right? Were they? No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. You're absolutely right.
Oh, was it me? Yeah, it was Mina and May, wasn't it? So we had Tam and Micah next. Matt, I feel like Micah might have had some sort of gift from you.
Well, this was your idea, and I was like, absolutely. So we realized there's all these strict rules going into WrestleCon, supposedly, where you only could take a clear bag. You literally walked right in, no problem. That was day 1. So we realized day 2, let's try to sneak a few beers in. And we realized, I think the guy's name was Brian. There was a guy there that he ran for wrestling. We actually bumped into him at Ring of Honor. And I forget. If I apologize, if he's listening, I apologize. But he was basically the guy that would hand you the little shopping bags to put your autograph in, so this way it didn't get ruined. He was so cool, so nice that we snuck him in a beer as well. So I said, Matt, let's bring a couple of beers. We'll give one to the security guy, and then one to Micah. I was like, that's a great idea. So again, I made mention that how much everybody loved my Saya Kamatani shirt. So I realized I'm meeting Mayu on the first autograph session. The next autograph session, I'm meeting Tam. So I do a little costume change. So Mayu and Momo Kogo, I had my Freedom t-shirt on. So, obviously Freedom, Mayu, Iyo, and Kyrie. So Mayu popped really, really big for as Momo Kogo. Then I wind up changing into my bright purple Tam shirt. And the art is done after Tam defeated Julia for the World of Stardom Championship. So she has the trophy. She's all happy. She's got the red belt. So, and there were some people that were asking, like, I think Starlight Kids, like, Stardom Cast, I think I heard. So there was a lot of business cards being slid. There was a lot of those QR code stickers being slid to majority of the Stardom wrestlers, which they were thankful for. So autograph 2 was Tam and Micah. We went to Tam's line first. And I noticed there's maybe about a dozen people in front of me. And I noticed that Tam was very big on doing 3 or 4 poses. So I was like, okay. The last pose is the one where she does a cutie face and she stares at you and she does a little kissy face. And I was like, oh, that's going to be a good one to put on social media. Every single wrestler, they shook their hand. No hand sanitizer, no fist bump. They properly shook, and this is the way it was with Utami when I met her. Shook your hand and thank you. Was very appreciative of your time and coming to WrestleCon. Now you got to keep in mind too, if you're going to meet these Stardom meet and greets, you're clearly driving to Philadelphia. You're paying your $50 to get into WrestleCon, and then you're paying your $50 for the meet and greet. So if you're meeting these Stardom wrestlers, you want to meet these Stardom wrestlers. So after the third picture, Tam would shake your hand, and instead of saying, everybody was like, "Oh, thank you so much, Dami Arigato," she goes, "Do you love me?" That's a lot to put on a fan, right? And everybody was like freezing, like, Tam, yes, I do. Tam, yes, I do. So it was just like, I was like, I have to do something different. And I don't know what I'm going to do until I'm in the moment. So we do the 3 poses. She shakes my hand, and she goes, "Do you love me?" And I go, "Well, Tam, do you love me?" And then Tam goes, "Yes." She looks away for a brief second. This is the pro, that's Tam. She looks away for a brief second, and she goes, "Yes, Matt, I love you." And I looked over at you, and I thought your head was going to explode. I go, "Oh my God, she loves me." So I will get into the mic in one just a second, but a lot of people asking me going, "She knew your name." She said, "Yes, Matt." When Tam looked away, she looked at the autograph that she signed, and it had my first name. That's how I knew that she knew my name. I was like, what a pro Tam is. What a pro Tam is. So I thought that was absolutely great. And the fact that it was like, "Yes, Tam, of course I love you." I know you had a different response for her, which I'll tag you in a minute. So then we get to Micah, and then walk over to Micah. And again, anybody that had a belt, you either got to put the belt on your shoulder or point with the belt, which I thought was great. As I walk up to Micah, I give her a beer. And she says in perfect English, she goes, "Oh, you guys know me very well." And then laughed. I thought that was hilarious. Took the pictures. She was great as well. Then I wake up the next morning as I'm in the gym. I realized that Micah took a selfie with said beer and put it on Twitter, saying that how much she appreciated anybody that gave her a gift. So I thought that was cool that the Stardom Cast beer was featured with my face and your face, was featured on Micah's Twitter the very next day. So I thought that was a very fun one. Again, because it's Tam, and I thought it was hilarious that after the Mayu picture, I sent it right over to my wife, because she knows how much of a giant fan I am of Mayu. Not as big as you, but obviously Mayu's a huge inspiration for me as well. And then I sent her over the Tam one just to kind of see if it's going to kind of not ruffle feathers, something I get a joke out of it. And she goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe you changed shirts." And the fact that you guys are like touching hands, because the photo that she did with everybody is, she makes a half a heart and you make a half a heart. And I said, "Oh, I didn't even realize that." She goes, "The fact that you changed shirts for that." I said, "Shows you how smart I am." She's like, "Well, you're something else." But no, again, those two, I don't have a favorite meet and greet, because how do you rank them? How do you rank them? But it's, I thought those two were great. And the fact that we popped Micah with the beer, and she said, "Oh, you guys know me really well, don't you?" I thought that was really funny.
No, I think Micah was the first one that actually gave us the belt to hold as well, which was really cool. I was very briefly one of the Red Belt champions, so I'm taking that to my grave, and I am going to add that to the championship lineage. But yeah, I thought Tam was really, really good with the crowd. Really, really good at making you feel like a very personalized experience. I think her and Mina were both very good at that, which I imagine is why Stardom are doing a lot of the pushing of those two in America that they are doing. Just going back to the bloke you were talking about, Brian Kanabrowski was the bloke who works backstage for Ring of Honor now, or is it New Japan of America? I can't remember. He did tell me he used to own Pro Wrestling Experience in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he was just chatting to us about the roster he used to have and things like that, and he was showing me like the roster from 2013. And it was crazy, because effectively this is, I'm looking at it. You've got Cedric Alexander, Tony Nese, Chris Hero, Adam Cole, Davey Richards, Shane Strickland, Colt Cabana, Jay Briscoe, Jay Lethal, Johnny Gargano, Lodi, Mark Briscoe. I know Mike Elgin is obviously, someone that isn't mentioned nowadays, but he was there as well. Mickey James, Santana Garrett, Tommaso Ciampa. Effectively, Matt, it was NXT before it was NXT.
Yeah, he had a really good run and really knew his stuff. So, it was really cool being able to chat with him as much as we did.
So, obviously, we then had our meet and greet, our final set of meet and greets with Mina Shirakawa and Mei Seira. Mei Seira is adorable. She is very, very nice. Mina Shirakawa just owns a room whenever she walks in. Steve Kaklamanos, when we did the Q&A for the live podcast, asked who sort of connected most with the American audience. Everyone did it really, really well, in fairness, on the Stardom American Dream show. Konami was one that surprised me with how well she was connecting with the American audience. But Mina Shirakawa, and to a slightly lesser extent Tam, were on a different level in terms of connecting with the audience, in terms of being that captivating central piece of a match. Mina was like that in the room as well. Like, she drew eyes, you know, her confidence, her charisma permeated the entire room, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. She was great, and she was very much about, you know, what pose you want to do. Some guy asked if you knew the Shawn Michaels and Diesel pose.
Yes,
someone had to show her. Yeah, someone had to show her how to do it. And she was so gracious. So I was like, well, if we're getting custom photos, I want Mina forming me in the head. So that's the one that I got. So I thought that was pretty funny. But again, she's another one that did like the 3 or 4 poses. I thought she was terrific. She was so nice, so personable. Again, her English is very, very good. She's obviously, you know, doing a lot more matches in the States. Yeah, she's somebody that I see earmarked for big, big things in Stardom. I mean, she already has been, and I think she's going to continue doing bigger things in Stardom, especially over here in the States. So I did make mention how that as soon as I got done with everything, by the time I got out of line, that go on the next line, Rob was the next person. However, this ended the streak because I turned around and Rob was there. However, there was someone that cut in line, and that was one Mariah May. So she literally goes over to Mina and she goes, I didn't see them. I don't want to rat anybody out, buddy. I didn't see her pay.
Nope.
I didn't see a scan ticket.
Nope.
Those little tickets that they gave you after you scanned your ticket, I didn't see that. And she cut the line because I know that you were behind me because we waited in the line together for everyone. However, Mariah May comes over and starts fangirling out to me. And she goes, oh, my God, I'm such a huge fan of yours. I love you so much. You're so pretty. You're so nice. I love your hair. And then Mina is selling. She goes, how do you spell your name? She's like, Mariah. She goes, how do you spell that? M-A. And then Mina's like, wait, hold on. M what? M, as if these two haven't been former Goddess of Stardom tag team champions. If these two did not just shoot an angle the night before, and they're going to shoot another angle at Ring of Honor, which again we'll get into in a minute. I just thought it was so funny. I was dying laughing. I even go, Mariah, you just cut the line. She's no. I was here the whole time. You must have just missed me. So then I'm in line to meet May Sarah, which if you remember, Mariah and May Sarah had like that Twitter war, the two of them fighting on the bus. And then she cuts the line in front of me. And then she goes, gets her photos taken with May Sarah, which I thought was hilarious. And then she went and posted them on Twitter, just like how much a huge fan she is of both May and Mina Shirakawa, which I thought that was just great. Again, the day before we had this fantastic meet and greet with Mariah May. She was all over the place in all these shows, you know, the Ring of Honor show, obviously the Stardom show, and now the fact that, she was great at the meet and greet we had with her the day before, and the fact that she's cutting the line to tell May Sarah and Mariah May how big of a fan that she is, and she's just fangirling out, and the fact that the two of them sold it so well, I thought was a great way to end our 2-day autograph session.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we've already referenced the picture of me and May Sarah. Obviously, we will be lodging a formal complaint with WrestleCon about Mariah May's just flagrant disregard of the rules. But yeah, I thought it was quite funny because Mariah May was like, I really like your hair to Mina. And Mina just literally just turned around and went, you're getting very close to me, which I really enjoyed. Proper no-selling her is awesome. But yeah, so that sort of brought to an end our Stardom meet and greets. Like every single wrestler, we knew there wasn't going to be a disappointing one, but there wasn't even one you can say, oh, well, that person was last or that person was last, because they were all absolutely amazing. They were all really cool. They were all, taking the time to make everything a very personal experience. And I know that everyone I spoke to felt very similar. Credit where credit is due to the organization of the WrestleCon sort of experience. The lady whose name I don't know, and it really upsets me because she was absolutely lovely on the door with the tickets. She was really nice. Obviously, Daichi, we've already mentioned. We got a photo with Daichi, which might be one of my highlights. Obviously, we got a photo with Taro Okada, who, again, he is the head of Bushiroad Fight and is holding people's stuff and is taking pictures for them. just seemed to literally just love being there, which was really cool. So if we rewind slightly, we ended up at the Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor show, which, shout out to your friend Shane Hagedorn, who is writing a book called Code of Honor, which is coming at some point. It will arrive. We just don't know when, but it's going to be incredible. You can follow the progress of it on at Code of Honor book. It's really, really good. It's going to be awesome. But he sort of managed to get us tickets to the show. Went in floor seats, really, really, really good seats for the show. And obviously, we're going to spend the majority of the review talking about the Stardom match. But before we do that, Matt, before obviously we talk about main event Momo Kogo and the Stardom match itself, I would just like to reference one thing. Now, you are an incredibly positive person. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's not an act either. You are genuinely one of the most positive and nice people. We were watching a particular match on this card. And, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to put over Matt for a second because he did all of the driving, all of the organization. He rallied everyone and was still up at God knows what time to go to the gym, despite Paul's incredible snoring. So, credit where credit's due, man. You were the reason the weekend was as great as it was. So, thank you for that. But I think at Ring of Honor, you were starting to flag a little bit. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? Because, you know, the 25-minute sleep you'd had over the last 8 days was starting to catch up with you. I have never heard you so, not angry, because that's not the word, but so against a single match than this one match on Supercard of Honor. Like, you had completely legitimate gripes with it, but just hearing you, like, just chuntering under your breath, like, just being completely negative and down on this match, honestly, really, really, really made me laugh, especially after everything else on the show had been so good, Matt.
Yeah, you got to understand with, and this is no disrespect to Johnny TV and Dalton Castle, who are great wrestlers, but they build this up as a fight without honor. And again, my roots in pro wrestling are Ring of Honor. It doesn't matter who owns it. Those letters to me, ROH, will always be very, very important, very, very near, dear to my heart. I wear it like a badge of honor, pun intended, that I am part of the very first graduating class of that Ring of Honor dojo. And I busted my ass to do that and to get there. So again, anything Ring of Honor, despite who owns it, despite what show or app it's on, I take pride, you know, and anybody that's in that ring. When you have a fight of honor, a fight without honor match, you know, the very first one was Low-Ki versus Samoa Joe. There's been some phenomenal fight without honor match with BJ Whitmer and Jimmy Jacobs. And then to go on and put on like a comedy match that you brought out one table and then didn't use. Taya Valkyrie was the MVP of that match. God bless her. She did everything in her power to get that crowd going, but there was literally nothing happening. I'm like, why make this a fight without honor match? You know, if you're going to break the rules a little, then call like a no DQ match. Don't build it up as a fight without honor. And I understand it's Super Card of Honor. It's in Philly. It's big WrestleMania weekend. You want to build this card up as much as possible. It was a phenomenal card from start to finish. But this match was just awful. And then you had the boys coming out. And again, maybe this is just me. And if I offend anybody, I apologize. I'm willing to bet that the boys are guys that are trained wrestlers. And with the exception of one, maybe two, none of them were even close to being in shape. And I'm like, I don't understand. If you're going to be on TV, or you know that you're going to be on TV, don't you think you should hit the gym a little bit more? If you want to take this pro wrestling thing seriously. Now, I know there's exceptions to the rule. Very few and far between. Like, if you're taking this wrestling thing seriously and want to make money out of it, and that you're very prideful in what you're doing, don't you think you should go to the gym? Again, Rob just mentioned it, and I'm not bragging. I slept very little this weekend, and a lot had to do with a combination of how busy we are and my buddy Paul being just an insane loud snorer. But I still got up every day between 5 and 5:30 and got my ass to the hotel gym because I take pride in being a pro wrestler. I don't wrestle that much anymore. But it's just, I take pride in that. And the fact that the guys that were the boys, and God bless them, and congratulations for getting a Ring of Honor TV spot. But not one, with the exception of one, maybe two, was in decent shape. And then they did a spot where they did all these dives. And by the time it got to the third one, I'm like, one of these guys is going to wind up hurting themselves because not one of them knows how to do a dive. And again, all the credit in the world goes to Johnny TV or Johnny Hennigan or whatever you want to call him, is he did the best he could to save everybody on these dives. It was just like, just end this. Please end this match because it was not good. It was not good. And then the crowd, it just killed the crowd. The crowd was hot for everything. It killed the crowd, and the crowd stayed dead up until the last 3 or 4 minutes of Sheeta and Athena, which just goes to show you how great Athena and Sheeta were, that they were able to wake up a dead crowd that late in the show. But yeah, I was literally, my points were valid. I wasn't bitching just to bitch like how most people do. You were sitting right next to me, to the left of me, and I was like, this is why this isn't any good. None of this makes any sense. There's a fight without honor, but we're doing comedy. Nobody's in shape. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It did not make any sense to me.
No, it was long as well, very, very long, and it didn't get going. The fact that the boys, it was the dives that really worried me because not one of them did them properly, and you could tell like they weren't ring ready, which is obviously a huge risk. Obviously, Athena and Sheeta then sort of didn't exactly benefit from that because then they had to reawaken the crowd because the crowd were absolutely silent by the end of Johnny TV and Dalton Castle. However, Athena and Sheeta managed to bring them round by the end. Then obviously we had the fantastic main event between Mark Briscoe and Eddie Kingston. But what we did have, Matt, was announced that on the 0 hour would be Momo Kogo versus Mariah May. Obviously, little bit of history between the two, with Mariah May during her time in Club Venus telling Momo Kogo that she sucked and was crap. And not only were they on the pre-show, Matt, but they were the main event of the pre-show. And Momo Kogo, as I mentioned before, despite being a lower card talent, was hugely over with the crowd, as was everyone, to be fair, from Stardom who got on the card.
Yeah, they had a great match. Momo came out, got a really huge reaction. And then Mariah May came out. They played the Tony Storm theme and had the Tony Storm video wall. So I think a lot of people thought that Tony Storm was coming out because she was doing the Tony Storm gimmick and not the Mariah May gimmick we saw the day before at Ring of Honor. So, at the Stardom show. So I think a lot of people thought the Tony Storm was coming out, but they still gave her a good pop because, again, she's doing the basically AEW Tony Storm gimmick. I thought the match was really good. There was a couple boot scrapes and drop kicks that Mariah May threw. You're like, geez, does Momo Kogo owe you money? But Momo Kogo did a great job on the comeback. I love that swinging 619 style DDT that she does. Again, Momo, you mentioned before for the 0 hour, and that place was packed. And you haven't seen the show. There had to be probably about 2,500 people there. It was, I believe, where Temple University plays basketball. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous venue. And again, shout outs to my man, Shane Hagedorn, who me and him did graduate the Ring of Honor dojo with some 19 years ago. So and Shane's always been a good brother. And again, you mentioned before we had floor seats. When he mentioned, he said, hey, I'm going to get you tickets. How many do you need? So I told him, and I was like, I don't care where they are because, they're free seats. I thought we'd be somewhere up in the balcony, which would have been fine. But we had I think, 5th row. I think we were 5th row on opposite side hard cam, which was just, I'm like, oh man, you didn't have to do that. But again, the biggest shout out to my good brother, Shane Hagedorn, who showed up at the live podcast as well and was able to, was able to show support there. So, but yeah, really, really good match. And if you haven't checked it out yet, it is on their the YouTube. Mariah May and Momo Kogo. I thought the match was really, really good. And then we go to the main show. We go to match number 2, my man. We had the Queen's Quest Cosmic Angels trio of Sai Kamatani, Azumi, and Tam Nakano taking on the World of Stardom champion Maika, Mai Sarah, and Mina Shirakawa. And I thought, and I made it, I told you, I thought it was very interesting that Azumi's was the entrance that got played. It wasn't Tam. It wasn't Sai Kamatani. They did the Azumi entrance, which I thought, okay, I kind of get that because they're doing the Chicago show. She's wrestling here, the next week. So our Steph Acker the next week for the New Japan Strong. And then, but I figured they would give Micah the big entrance because she's the champion, but they gave that one to Mina. And no disrespect to Micah, but Mina does have the more pay-per-view style entrance, if you know what I mean. But I thought that was very interesting that they gave the entrances to Izumi and Mina. And Izumi had new gear. She debuted new gear for this show. What'd you think of the gear there, Mr. Goodwin?
Loved it. Thought she looked like the star. And yeah, you're right. They literally and figuratively made Izumi the focal point of that entrance. You know, when you've got someone as inherently flashy as Saya Kamatani and someone as inherently charismatic and eye-catching as Tam, and you make it about Izumi, obviously the number one contender of Steph Vacker's New Japan Strong Women's Championship, then, you know, you're on to a good thing. I think everyone in that match, all 6 women, did a fantastic job. And I think the crux of that was starting with Izumi and Mei Seira. But even aside from that, you had the fact that you had so much of Saya Kamatani versus Mina. That seemed to be like the central sort of point around which the entire match was focused, was Saya Kamatani and Mina Shirakawa. And the fact that Mina Shirakawa pinned Saya clean with the glamorous driver Mina, no, the figure four driver Mina, was, you know, quite shocking. I mean, we mentioned earlier that they're clearly building to Toni Storm versus Mina in what can only be described as a Mariah May on a pole match. But I think everyone had their chance to shine. And actually, on that show, if you were to ask me who was the least pushed, I'd actually say probably Tam. Because everybody else on that card either had extended periods in the ring or had like those explosive periods. And that's not to say that Tam was underutilized by any stretch of the imagination, but I just don't think the focus was on Tam, was it?
No, and I think maybe that just wasn't the point for it. You know, obviously she was able to do what she needed to do. I think she had a violent shooting. I think she did a tiger suplex and she had a dive. So I think the main focal point was on the build up Mina. We're building up Saya for that match ultimately for it to eat the fall. That's how Stardom does their 6-person matches. As they build somebody up in the match and then just for somebody to beat them, so it makes the person look even better when they go over. But yeah, Zumi obviously on the losing side, she looked the best on that team. I understand she's going to Chicago in 2 weeks, this weekend, for their match with Steph Acker, and they made Mina look like an absolute star. Mike was great as well. People were blown away by the speed of Mei Seira. You know, you mentioned that before. But again, it's another, if you take a look at it, take a step back, it's a Saya Kamatani who does not eat a lot of falls. In the last two and a half years, she does not eat a lot of falls. And the fact that Mina beat her in the 5-star in 2022, she beat her in that absolute match of the year candidate, a 5-star match for the Wonder of Stardom Championship last year. And now that she pinned her in Philadelphia on pay-per-view at a Ring of Honor show in the middle of the ring, that just goes to show you how much they're pushing in Mina Shirakawa. And it's a very easy story to tell. You know, I think a majority of us do expect Saya Kamatani to have a major push, you know, either win the 5-star and or win the World of Stardom Championship by the end of this year, beginning of next year. It's an easy story to tell to have Mina be one of the first challenges for that belt. You know, we've seen them have great matches for the Wonder of Stardom Championship. Mina pinned Saya Kamatani here clean. She can very easily say, hey, Saya, you're the World of Stardom champion now. But how many times have I beaten you last few times you've been in the ring? And you can easily go back. And Stardom is one of those wrestling companies that they reward you for watching everything. And they're very big and enriched on their history. And it's something they can draw back to. Once Saya Kamatani becomes red belt champion, they can finally have her get her win back over Mina Shirakawa. But this time for the most important belt in all of wrestling, the World of Stardom Championship. But really good match. And I'm glad that they gave them time to tell their story.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that suddenly, after Saya Kamatani had this imperious reign with the white belt, suddenly we're at a point where Mina has Saya's number and has done it, you know, 3 times back to back to back. And that's certainly, if they're going to do that, that's certainly a really cool story to go down. You know, has Mina got in Saya's head after that botched, you know, I know you hate that word, but the failed Phoenix Splash that mangled Mina's face, you know, has that got in Saya's head? You know, is Saya able to beat Mina after that? And I think if that's where we're going later down the line, once, you know, I think both of us anticipate that Saya will be red belt champion within the year. is that going to be the story they go down with Mina as a challenger? I would certainly be surprised if they don't, but that's by the by. Anyway, that aside, I thought they absolutely blew it out of the water with the amount of time they were given. I thought, like I said, everyone had their chance to shine. And I was especially happy for someone like Mayu, who, had the unfortunate hand of being the person next to Mina at the signing tables. And there was one point, and I know it wasn't like this for the entire time, so please, it's okay. People did go to Mayu, it's fine. But there was one point where there was a very small line for Mayu and an absolutely massive line for Mina Shirakawa. So it was nice for Mayu to get her moment in the sun in the match. I mean, this match went 14 minutes, and it flew by, didn't it?
Yeah, again, it was really good stuff. I thought everybody looked good. Yeah, you could have highlighted Tam a little bit more, but at the same time, you didn't want to take away from Kamatani and Azumi because they are pushing that match for a certain reason. But just real quick to kind of go back on the autograph session. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it Mayu, Mina, Micah, and Tam? They all sold out of their autograph sessions. Isn't that what we were told?
Yes, I believe so. I think Micah sold out the morning of hers. I can't remember who it was who told me, but yes, I believe that was the case. Again,
Starlight Kid, Saya Kamatani, it looked like that their lines were just as full as the other ones, so they wouldn't be shocked if they were a sellout or close as well. So again, Stardom was massively over, and they benefited massively from this little venture over here to Philadelphia. No doubt about that.
Oh, absolutely. And then obviously, I suppose for this whole trip was about WrestleMania. On the Saturday, we then had NXT TakeOver Stand Deliver, which, because of the signings, we only actually saw 2 matches of live. And then we went out to go and get a drink during the Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams match. And then we just sort of left and went to a bar, had a lot to drink, and then went to WrestleMania Night 1. But of the 2 matches, obviously, and we saw Julia unveiled, which I thought that we managed to time that quite well. Of those 2 matches, Matt, what was your opinion of those 2 matches at TakeOver Stand Deliver?
The Roxanne Perez championship match, I thought was the better of the 2. I thought that she was great. That Laya Valkyrie girl, I've seen wrestle a handful of times, and she's really good. But I've been a big fan of Roxanne Perez ever since she was Roxy and Ring of Honor. Yeah, she's really, really terrific, and she's doing a great job on this new persona that she has with this more aggressive, like working the arm. Excuse me, Ilya Dragunov is obviously one of the best wrestlers in the world. It's only a matter of time before he's called up. I believe I think I just answered my own question. I believe they did make mention he's eligible for the SmackDown and Raw draft coming up at the end of this month. So Tony D'Angelo is very much just like a gimmick. His gimmick would be perfect in the 1980s and 1990s for Vince McMahon's WWF. I thought he held his own in this match, but I thought it was really smart booking on whoever put the match together to have Dragunov carry the heavy lifting as far as the actual in-ring work goes. So I thought that both matches were booked well. Yeah, as soon as we sat down, I don't think we were sitting more than 10 minutes, but Julia showed up on our screens, which I thought was really good. So, again, we timed that perfectly. Sometimes we get lucky, partner. Sometimes we get lucky. But before I forget, I do want to make mention how on, again, the Ring of Honor show was Friday. Saturday, we were going up to the top floor at WrestleCon, and me and you on the escalators, and we were just talking about my good friend Shane Hagedorn, what a great guy he was, because at first when we got to the venue, they didn't have tickets in my name. And I did ask them, I said, is it under my shoot name or my worker name? He said, no, your shoot name. They couldn't find it under my shoot name. They couldn't find it under my real name. I didn't want to bother him, but at the same time, we were waiting to get him the show. I was like, hey, man, I know you're busy. They don't have tickets for me. He showed up 2 minutes later, and then he wound up mixing my shoot name and my real name together, which in the 20 years I've known him, he's never done. And the only time that I needed to get one of the two right, and he didn't. But obviously, I love Shane Hagedorn. He's one of my favorite human beings on the planet, just a really good brother. But so we're talking about what a great brother Shane Hagedorn is. As we get to the top of the escalator, this giant man in front of me turns around. He goes, you know Shane Hagedorn? How do you know Shane Hagedorn? And it was the Necro Butcher. I go, Necro, I went to wrestling school with them. And he goes, wait a minute, I know you. I know you. He goes, give me a minute. I go, you beat me up really bad in 2004 that set up your match with Samoa Joe. And he gave me a big hug. He goes, Matt, so good to see you. He goes, you look so different. And I was like, yes, because I was 155 pounds with an awful goatee. And now I'm 205 pounds and I have no facial hair. So for those who don't know, if you've ever seen the Necro Butcher versus Samoa Joe match, first of all, if you haven't, it's free on YouTube. Go and watch it. But when Dave Prazak's doing commentary, he makes mention the reason why this match came about is because the Necro Butcher beat up two of the Ring of Honor students. I was said one Ring of Honor student. We were in Tag World Grand Prix 2005. It was me and my tag partner at the time, Anthony Franco, fellow graduate of the Ring of Honor dojo, versus the Deathmatch Kings of the Necro Butcher and Madman Pondo. And we got roughed up a little bit. I didn't think it was as bad as everybody made it out to be. The internet, as they tend to do, make things to be out a lot bigger than they were. And Necro was super cool to me, got me bookings, got me more money than I asked for on certain bookings. Was always great to me, checked on me. But Samoa Joe was best friends with CM Punk and did help a lot with the training whenever he'd come to the East Coast. So they wound up making a match of it. They made a lot of money. And that's how that match came about. And I know I have a lot of people to this day that ask me if I have any resentment towards Necro Butcher. Never did, never will. Had a great conversation with him. And then had the conversation, two Japanese men came over, started talking to Necro Butcher and said, hey, can you take our photo? I said, absolutely. I took a photo with Necro, even though he was doing an autograph signing and a photo, didn't charge because we were right in the middle of whatever. And he's such a nice guy. Then I saw this beautiful girl in a red dress come over. And then she said, can you take my photo as well with Necro Butcher? I realized after I took the photo that was Jasmine St. Clair, who has been involved in the wrestling business and another business that obviously we will not talk about on this podcast. If you're under the age of 18, please do not Google that name. But so then as I was leaving, you're like, who was that? And I'm like, the tall guy with the glasses? Oh yeah. I go, that was the Necro Butcher. And you popped huge. You go, that was a Necro Butcher. And I was like, Rob, hold on one sec. I go, and Necro was going. I said, Necro, 1 second. He's like, hey, I go, this is my friend Rob. I do the podcast with. He flew all the way from England. He's a big fan of yours. And then you shook his hand out and he goes, don't call me Necro, call me Dylan, which is his shoot name. So that was really cool. And he's like, hey, he looked at me and he goes, anybody that's a friend of yours, he's a friend of mine. So I thought that was really cool. Then he left and I go, did you see how big his hands were? And you go, yep. I go, those things hit me at about 90 miles per hour in the head back in 2004. So when I saw Necro was on the thing, I did want to go say hi to him. Necro has had some bouts with cancer that he was able to beat. I made mention on this podcast a few times the last few years. Lost my father-in-law to cancer 4 years ago. There's a couple people on Amber's side of the family that's battling cancer. So anybody that's able to face cancer head on and kick its ass, I got all the respect in the world for. So I thought that was awesome. And Necro did say, he's like, make sure you tell Hagedorn I said hello. So I thought it was a really, really cool interaction from Necro, and I'm really glad that you got to meet him as well. So, but yeah, so then we go on to WrestleMania. We go to NXT. We're just there for a minute, and then we realized, hey, let's get over to the Xfinity Bar where my buddy Chad was. I bought us a couple drinks. You got to watch the first tequila stuntman you ever witnessing a tequila stuntman. So for those of you who don't know, the tequila stuntman, I did not tip Rob off to this at all. I knew for about 4 months this was going to happen. I knew if I made mention, you would have Googled it or YouTubed it. I've only seen one person in my life do the tequila stuntman, and that's my crazy buddy Paul. What the tequila stuntman is, if you do a shot of tequila, more than likely you have your tequila of choice, salt, and a lime. My buddy Paul snorts the salt, takes the shot of tequila, and then jams the lime juice into his open eye. So, Rob, I want to ask you on air, what did you think about seeing your first tequila stuntman?
Honestly, it was a very surreal moment because I was like, he's not going to do that. He's not going to, oh, okay, he is doing that. Oh, okay, we all go in there. Right, okay, cool. It was a very surreal experience. Thankfully, no Pauls were harmed in the making of that tequila stuntman. But yes, it was not what I expected, good sir. Not what I expected at all. However, it was a sign of things to come when it came to Paul.
Yeah, and that's for sure. And Paul, Paul is, again, he would do anything for you. I mean, I don't know if anybody he does have a rule that if he does a tequila stuntman that you have to buy the shot. But other than that, he will fight you to buy beers. Like, not physically fight you, because he's not a violent guy by any stretch of the imagination. He loves buying people's drinks. He loves, being entertaining for everybody. He is a lovable human being. I just wish he would get his snoring thing under control. But that's another story for another day. I've known Paul. Me and him have been best friends since the first grade, so I've known him, literally my entire life. But yeah, so then we get to WrestleMania, and as we get into our seats, we literally almost bump into the War Master, one former UFC heavyweight champion and one Josh Barnett. And I yelled out, "Oh my God, Josh Barnett!" And he kind of put his hand up, and then Paul yelled, "The War Master, Josh Barnett!" And then he kind of put his hands up and smiled. Then we got to our seats where Paul would repeatedly, as the beer vendor would come down, Paul would repeatedly buy anywhere between 2 to 4 beers. And after I had 2, I said, "Buddy, I got to wind up driving you guys home. Everybody drink as much as you want. I just want to make sure I get everybody back, not home, to the hotel." But he just kept going and going and going. And then I know how he gets eventually. The Energizer Bunny shuts down. You just don't know when and where it's going to happen. He doesn't get violent when he drinks. He doesn't get sick when he drinks. He just shuts down. And he was having the best time. There's about an 8 or 9-year-old wrestling fan to the left that he became like best friends with. And then the kid ribbed him. He said, "Yeah, hey, can you get me a Solo Sikoa shirt?" Paul was gone for 20 minutes looking for a Solo Sikoa shirt, which they didn't sell. There was none there. I thought that was funny that the kid ribbed him. And then at the start of the very long main event match, Paul once again passes out during the main event of a Rock match at WrestleMania. What I mean by that is at WrestleMania 29, him and John Cena, Paul was having a good time with adult beverages. And the next thing you know, he fell asleep during the Rock and John Cena match. So I thought night one was done pretty well. I thought the 2 best matches, I think you agree with me, was Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley. And I think maybe the best match of the 2 nights, as far as Mania goes, was Sami Zayn and Gunther. I thought that was terrific. The main event went just a little bit too long. The entrances were really cool, but there's no need for that match to go over 40 minutes when really only 5 or 6 was the real highlight of the match. But yeah, that was it was really cool. It was really cool to be there in front of 70,000 people. We had really good seats. It just got a little chilly the last hour or so of the show, but I thought night one was really solid. Again, with the Intercontinental Championship and the Raw Women's Championship being my favorite 2 matches of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Could not agree more. The Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso match was incredibly disappointing. And then the Rock match was so long because when you take, the match went 44 minutes, the second longest Mania match in history. It will not be remembered, I imagine, as fondly as Shawn versus Brett. But taking into account Rocky's entrance as well, like it was well over an hour, the entire main event. Yeah, and it was a long time coming. However, I had my hands full in making sure that a comatose Paul did not keel over and crush the 9-year-old to the left of him. So it was it was a fun time.
You joined an exclusive group, my man. And I think I put on Twitter, you between best friending my cat Ace and that just everybody. I talked to my buddy Chad, who we hung out with for a little bit yesterday, and the first thing he asked me, he's like, "Did Rob have a good time? And did he get home safe?" I said, "Well, he flies out today." But everybody was asking, make sure you had a good time. My dad, Jeff, my cousin Frank, everyone wanted to make sure you had a good time. And I was like, "Yeah, he had to babysit Paul." He's like, "Oh, was he mad about it?" I'm like, "No, but he's part of the fraternity now. When you have to babysit Paul." So he literally woke him up as the match was over. He made sure that he got in the car. Paul quickly fell asleep in the car, and it took us about almost an hour to get out of the parking lot. And then once we got into the elevator, you probably had to prop him up against the wall, and then he got right into bed. And then the very next day for WrestleMania Night 2, he had 1 beer the whole entire time, which that's just the way he is, man. He realized that he overdid it and was just like, "Yeah, I had my fill all in one day." So, yeah, good stuff. Again, yeah, you're right. The main event was too long. And then what did we do? Oh, unless there's anything else, you want to go into our crazy day on Sunday?
I do just want to bring one thing up, Matt. And that is the fact that we made good on our promise, didn't we? In the car park, during our tailgate, the fabled Matt Turner chop and forearm happened.
Yeah, Chad started it. He wanted a chop, so we did that, and then you wanted a chop and forearm as well. And again, I said it twice before, and you said that every time that I say it, you feel less manly. But I do have to say that on a scale of 1 to 10, my forearm to Rob was like a 4, 4.5.
We really do not have to keep bringing that up. You could just let me have that, man. You really don't need to add the fact that I can hit you harder if I want. But yes,
that just showed you how much. That just showed you how much I love you. I wouldn't hit you any more than a 6.
I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you. But yes, it was. I will just say the chop, even though that has given me a lovely little war wound over my tit. I would say that the forearm hurt more. Simply because of where it hit. I was still feeling that in my neck for a good bit of time afterwards. But yeah, all good fun. Maybe when I'm less self-conscious about my chalky white body, we'll put it up on the Patreon, maybe. But yes, let's talk about our chaotic day. Oh no, Matt, we've missed one big thing out.
There's a lot of things we did. What did we miss, brother?
Who did we meet in the hotel?
Oh, several times. Okay, so there's actually, you guys only bumped into him once. I bumped into him at 3 times. So we may as well do it all together. So it was Friday. Friday we came back from the hotel, and I had to go out in my car to get something. So it's just everybody else was chilling in the hotel room. So there was 4 floors onto this hotel. We were on the top floor, 4th floor, and I go back to go upstairs again. You guys were in the room, so I was solo, and the hotel door or the elevator door opens, and I do a double take. I'm like, I think that was Minoru Suzuki that just walked past me. And then, it was Saturday because our Friday was the Ring of Honor show because he was a mystery person on the 6-person tag. And then I see a person walk by and he's wearing a sweater or a hoodie that says Gotch style pile driver. I said, I'm 99% sure that was Minoru Suzuki. So on Saturday, we're getting back. We're waiting for the elevator. And it's just the 4 of us. There's nobody else there. And all of a sudden we're talking and it gets really quiet. And then I look over and it's Minoru Suzuki with his wrestling bag. He realizes the 4 of us are fans. So we got real quiet. He tries to pull his shirt over his face, but it's not working because it's a shirt, right? And then everybody gets really, really quiet. And I'm like, okay, I think I have to handle this. So then I said, oh man, I'm really, really tired. And then I press the button, the door opens, and I go, Mr. Suzuki, that's all yours. He gets in the elevator. We don't follow him. We don't bother him. But he couldn't hit that door close button any faster. I mean, he's like smashing this thing. So then Sunday morning comes. I go to the gym, and then I go to I had to go get something out of my car. So I just brought my car keys with me instead of going back to the 4th floor. I knew I needed to get something out of my car after I got done with the gym. And then who is waiting in the lobby at 7:00 in the morning, waiting for his ride to go to the airport? The one Minoru Suzuki, all dolled up, all dressed up in his fedora. So not only did we run into Josh Barnett, not only did we run into Minoru Suzuki, but I ran into him not once, not twice, but 3 times. And to everybody that's asking, no, I didn't say anything to him. I didn't ask for a picture. I wanted to be very, very respectful because Minoru Suzuki is, if you ask me, out of the wrestlers that I've been studying over the last 10 years, it's Bryan Danielson, Katsuhori Shibata, and Minoru Suzuki. Those are the 3 wrestlers that I study and watch the most, adapt the style that I have, that I do in wrestling, because I'm a big fan of that shoot style of pro wrestling. So, no, I was very, 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 very respectful to one Minoru Suzuki, as all of us were. But I thought that was a funny little tidbit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does help that he's absolutely terrifying. So none of us wanted to say anything because he is a terrifying grandpa, but that's beside the point. Plus, he turned up at the Ring of Honor show and traded chops with JY, so that was nice. But Matt, please go through our chaotic final day, the Sunday.
So Sunday, myself and Rob had tickets to, well, Paul wanted to go to Spark Joshi Pro, but he wound up sleeping. Well, between the time he passed out on Saturday and the time he got up, he slept 12 hours. I'm like, dude, we're just going to the show. So we knew it got really cold on WrestleMania Saturday, and our seats were higher up for WrestleMania Sunday, and it was supposed to be colder. So we decided, hey, let's leave a little bit early. Let's go to the Spark Joshi show. Or before we go to the Spark Joshi show, let's go to Walmart. So no problem. There's a Walmart like 10 minutes away. So we went. We stocked up on some gloves and some thermal sweaters and some, at this point, Rob lost his voice after the very first match he saw, which was the 3-way for the high-speed championship. I was getting a little bit under the weather, which never happens to me because I just don't let myself get sick. I think it was just a combination of everything going on, being out in the cold, and then for Easter week, not only was my wife sick, but my daughter was sick. So I think everything was kind of catching up to me as well, and I was trying to sweat it out as much as possible, and I didn't want to get anybody else sick. But I wasn't sick enough to the point where I was going to sit in the hotel room. So me and Rob, we wind up getting some cough drops and some flu medicine just to make sure we were good to go. Hence, that's why our voices sound like they do, but we decided to power through this episode because we knew it was going to be a fun one. So we start going to the Spark Joshi show, and Rob is on his phone, and he says, oh, Spark just put something up about 20 minutes ago that Mayu is only signing. Now, the doors open at 1. The show starts at 2. Mayu is only signing from 1 to like 1:45 or 1:50. I was like, oh, she's probably leaving early to go see Iyo for the Iyo and Bayley match. That probably makes sense. So I was like, okay, my GPS is saying that we'll be there 10 to 1. No problem. We pull up at the Monster Factory. Now, believe it or not, I've never been to the world famous Monster Factory before. We pull up and there is a line like 2 blocks outside the door. So I'm like, well, this is great because this is probably going to be a sellout. As we get in line, we're doing more meet and greets with some of our listeners and whatnot, which I thought was great. I bumped into a buddy of mine, DJ, that I've known since I was in high school. It was really good seeing him. And then I actually bumped into him a few times. But as we're getting into get closer to the door, it's like 20 after 1. And I can see Rob is kind of pulling me a little bit from the live Stardom Cast podcast when I realized that we had no equipment, as Rob has a little bit of a panic on him. And then we get into the building. The building is not that big. And it's very hot. And it's overpacked. And it's kind of, where do we need to go? We need to go meet Mayu because like she's leaving in 20 or 30 minutes. Like her line is only supposed to do this. And everybody's kind of scanning our bag. And we had autographs and meet and greets for pretty much for everybody. Konami, for Kyoka Inoue, for Aja Kong, for Mayu, Tam, Azumi, Starlight Kid, and Mina. We went all out. Like, we got to get to Mayu first. And I can see you're starting to get frustrated. It's hot in this building, and it's packed. And I'm like, oh, Rob, you have no idea what independent wrestling is on Northeast level. And I absolutely love just like how like it looked like your head was going to explode. I'm like, welcome to independent pro wrestling in the Northeast area, because this is what it is. You're in these buildings, whether it's hot or it's cold, like, and it's over. And it's great when it's oversold, and you can kind of just like, it just has a dungeony feel to it. It's very grassroots, and I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that feeling. We wind up getting to Mayu, and because I'm like, Rob, they're not gonna, if we're in line, they're not gonna cut it off. We were there at the autograph sessions before, especially with Saya and Azumi, where people came in a little bit late and they still sign. Like, if you have the ticket, they're gonna sign. It's no big deal. And I know that we met her the day before, but these ones we wanted to get group shots of me, Robin, Fred Wrestling. So we did a 3-dumb pose, boom, she's gone. And then we're like, let's try to get as many autographs done before show as we can, because we had to jet out of there to try to get into the Lincoln Financial Field, the parking there, so we can meet everybody else for a little tailgating before WrestleMania night 2. So we knew as soon as that bell rang for the main event match, we need to get out of there. So the show was supposed to start at 2, and now it was getting closer to 2:30. However, we met Mayu, and then I got in line to go meet Starlight Kid, and then there was Tam there as well. And then you're over there talking to Konami, and I was trying to get your attention, but you were having a good conversation with Konami. We wind up meeting Tam again. We wind up meeting Starlight Kid again, and then you had a really, really great story with your meeting with Konami, partner.
I did, yes. So obviously the Stardom wrestlers weren't allowed to sign anything personal, which I completely understand. You know, you do it for one person, you've then got to do it for everyone. Suddenly the line is taking 10 times longer. Completely get that. Nothing against Stardom for that. Or Spark. But Konami, I was like, I'm going to chance my arm. So I asked if she'd sign my book. To which, without opening it, looking at it, she was like, I have actually already read it. You know, broken English, but she was still able to have a conversation. I've read it. Why am I only in it once? I was like, I'm sorry. And she was like, and I'm not on the cover. I was like, oh my God, Konami is going to shoot. Like, and then she made to throw the book out of the door, told me in no uncertain terms where to go, and then signed my book, and took a lot of time to talk to me about it and say she enjoyed it. So it was really cool that she has read that book. You know, in a book in a second language, which is really, really cool. And But yeah, so that was a really cool cathartic moment. And I just want to say that, yeah, my head was about to explode because of the chaos that was the signing, which, when you've got a small venue, is always going to happen. But I thought the show itself, so the Spa Joshi show, was brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was my sleeper hit of the weekend. Like, I expected to enjoy Mania. I expected to enjoy the Stardom show, the Ring of Honor show. I knew this would be good, but I didn't think it would be as good as it was. All in all, I thought this was absolutely great. There was some really, really, really good matches on it. Obviously, all the Stardom wrestlers were great. The one I want to highlight initially is the tag match. So Jada Stone and Mayu Iwatani taking on Konami and Maya World. The reason I want to highlight that, so for those who don't know, Spark held tryouts. And basically they were judged then by a panel of 5. I think Sumi Sakai, Saki, Konami, Mayu, and
Aja Kong?
No, I want to say is it Ram? I want to say it's Ram. I could be wrong though. Anyway, they chose basically from that group. Jada was chosen by Mayu and Maya World was chosen by Konami, and they had a tag match. The reason I want to highlight this is because it was a fantastic match. Now, it's got Mayu Iwatani in it, it's got Konami in it, it's going to be a certain threshold. Maya World, bookmark this tweet, Maya World is going to be a superstar. She is 21 years old. There is a clip actually going around on Twitter at the moment of an exchange between her and Mayu. And she says this isn't sped up, by the way. And genuinely, you look at it and it does look like you're watching it on 2x speed. It's a brilliant, brilliant exchange. Jada Stone, who I admittedly knew criminally little of going into this, I was massively into her. Charisma, speed, athleticism. She had the whole package. I would be amazed if we don't see Jada and Maya World on a tour of Stardom in the very, very near future. I loved both women, but Maya World, Matt, she has that something. She really does.
Yeah, real quick, just to piggyback on your Konami thing. Konami drew her face on Rob's book. So Rob has Konami's face on your book. So
she drew herself on the cover.
Yeah, she got a little doodle. But yeah, and Jada Stone, Bayley put over in her post WrestleMania press conference.
I saw that.
So that was amazing. Yeah, again, the Spark show, they mentioned it was sold out. I thought that was great. I bumped into CB, the owner of Spark Joshi. I talked to her for all of a hot minute. I knew how busy she was. And, I was like, hey, I'm Matt from the Stardom Cast. She's like, oh, yeah. Thank you so much for the notes. And Alyssa Marino, who we gave notes to for the show, I've been talking to her the past couple of days. She was blown away by our knowledge of Stardom, and sometime in the future, we're going to have her on the show for an interview. She seems absolutely fantastic. But I really enjoyed the show for a lot of reasons. Again, one, it was the only true, real independent. It felt like true grassroots independent show. Excuse me, which I absolutely love. The fact that this is only their 4th or 5th show and they sold it out, and the fact that they're working with Stardom talent now, I think is great. Again, I talked to CB and she just seems like an absolutely lovely, lovely person, and we hope to be working with them in the future. But yeah, this was very much. Again, I'm not going to say. Well, I will say my favorite match the whole weekend was Mark Briscoe versus Eddie Kingston. I thought that was great. I'm not going to say what my favorite signing with the Stardom wrestlers was. We already mentioned that. But if I had to pick what my favorite show, WrestleMania is WrestleMania. The pageantry, especially that night too, especially the end of that main event was crazy. But if you're asking me for what I love in pro wrestling from start to finish, what was my favorite show? It might be this one. Like you said, you mentioned it's probably the sleeper hit of the weekend. I thought it was great. The matches were great. The wrestlers, again, we didn't know anything really of Maya World and Jada Stone. We were now fans of them. I thought the tag match with Mina and Janai Kai versus Tam and Aja Kong, I thought was absolutely terrific. I thought a 3-way that had Kyoko Inoue, Azumi, and Danny Moe in it. You're wondering how that's going to work out. And I made mention, you have, the high-speed bomb girl, you have a Joshi legend, and then you have a darling of the Northeast Indie scene, in a match on WrestleMania weekend in a super hot building. And I mean, temperature-wise and crowd-wise, how was that going to go? And that was great. And the one thing I do want to make mention, maybe this is just because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and when the WWF would come to town to the CYC in Scranton once every 6 or 7 weeks. So pretty much when I would go to these WWF shows when I was a kid, everybody not named Bret Hart would give less than 100%. This wasn't the case for the Stardom talent. Like Mayu's doing moonsaults. Mina and Tam were properly like hitting each other really hard. Starlight Kid was fantastic. Azumi's going 1,000 miles an hour. It was kind of, again, maybe it was just ingrained in me since I was a kid that it's like if it's not a big show, these wrestlers aren't going to give 100%, which Stardom wrestlers clearly did not do. I thought they were fantastic on the show. Again, Mayu and Konami, they gave great outings to Jada Stone and Maya World, and I would absolutely love to see them on a Stardom tour. You know, you just mentioned a minute ago, buddy. I totally would co-sign on that. And Janai Kai as well, in the Kick Demon. I would love to see her in Stardom. Imagine matches with her and Hazuki, her and Shuri, her and Mina. I would love to see Janai Kai do a Stardom tour somewhere, you know, within the next year or so. But yeah, this Spark show was absolutely fantastic. I do want to go back and watch that main event because I'm a huge fan of Saki, as you know. But I was kind of just waiting for the show to get over so we can finish our signings and our pictures that we paid for and then get out of there to go to WrestleMania. But again, it was a great match. I thought everything was terrific. And the fact that they're setting up a Spark and Stardom relationship, it seems like, because I don't know if it was just me. I think you'll agree with me, but the most over baby face in that we've been saying it for about a year. The entire show. And everybody was over. It was a hot crowd. But the most over person on that show, as far as the baby face goes, was Starlight Kid. We make mention on the show all the time. She's so good. Like, how are we booing her? How are we supposed to be booing her? Like, we can boo her against Azumi and like Kamitani and Mayu because they're so loved. But it's like, how are we booing her? And the fact that she beat Sumi Sakai for the One Spark Championship and she had a mask specially made that said Spark on it. Obviously, we're going somewhere with this Spark and Stardom relationship, which means, and I know they made mention that they're doing a show sometime, I think in the spring or summer, a Spark show, I think like a Spark and Colors show. So I'd imagine Starlight Kid's going to be on there. And I imagine we'll probably see Starlight Kid coming over a time or two in the States to defend that Spark Championship. So I thought the show, yeah, you made mention sleeper hit. Again, it might be my favorite as far as pure wrestling goes from start to finish. It might be my favorite wrestling show of the entire weekend. And we went to a lot of shows. We saw a lot of matches. And if this is what Spark is going to do by bringing in, you know, overseas talent, by highlighting some of the talent in the States and bringing legends like Aja Kong and Kanoko Inoue, who again, their prime was in the 90s and they both looked great. They both looked fantastic. I thought again, the building was sold out. It might have even been oversold, but they did great job getting people in and out of there with the autograph lines, with the little space that they did, that they had. And then we met Konami again for the picture because you already got the autograph. And then I kind of had to bury you to Konami. I'm like, yeah, I told them Konami and Arisa. How come Konami and Arisa's not in there? How come Konami and Hana's not in there? And she kind of chuckled, but we took a couple pictures with Konami, and of course we did the Hana TCS salute as one of our photos. And then as we were getting ready to leave, as usual, my man, you were the smartest man in the room. We were getting ready to leave off that side door because again we had to hustle out of there to get to WrestleMania night 2. You said, "Hey man, we know we took a picture of Daichi, but let's go and thank him." And like because he was again very much like President Okada, he was holding people's things. He was taking pictures with your cell phone. Where Tam was in the corner, Tam was like sweating. He was so hot, and he had like a paper fan that he made trying to cool Tam down. I thought that was just so awesome. Somebody that doesn't have to do that, but he does because he just loves Stardom. He loves what he does. He loves the fans. He loves pro wrestling. And as we were leaving, we said, we said, "Hey, Daichi, thank you." And then you even made sure to mention to him, we're not just thanking you for what you did this weekend, but everything you do for Stardom. Like, we know how much you put into it. Thank you for everything you do to Stardom. We shook his hand and we started walking out. And then he was like almost walking us out to the car. He's like, "You two are very good boys. You help us very much. Come to Japan." And I go, "Well, Daichi, you guys coming back?" And he said, "I think so next year." And I think what he meant by that, there's a possibility Stardom Mania next year, which is obviously something me and you have to talk about going back and doing this again for Mania in Minnesota next year. But he seemed to be pretty adamant that he wants us to go to Japan. So, and again, that's a conversation me and you will have to have, off camera. But obviously, it's a dream of mine. Could go to Japan and cover a Stardom show. I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else other than you, brother. But Daichi was just so nice and so appreciative, and was really, really so kind to us, and just let us know how much that he appreciated us as much as we appreciated him. So, all the Stardom wrestlers I had high expectations for, and they absolutely blew it out of the water. Every single person blew it out of the water, whether it was in ring, whether it was a meet and greet, whether it was an interview or anything like that. I mean, I can't say enough good things about everybody representing this fine company that is Stardom. And again, Spark too. If you guys have never seen a Spark Joshi show, first of all, I think again you can purchase this one on Thriller for, I think it's like $20. Well worth your money. And Spark Joshi is something as a wrestling company to keep your eyes on for.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought every match offered something a little bit different. The comedy between Aja Kong and Tam Nakano was great. I thought Brittany Blake was a real impressive force in that match. Second on the card, Slamovich and Rina Yamashita versus Brittany Blake and Laney Luck. Laney Luck, of course, who was parachuted in the last second because Hyen dropped out. And I thought Laney Luck was great. And yeah, it was altogether a very, very fun show. Who knew that Azumi and Kyoko Inoue would have such fantastic comic timing with each other? I thought that was really cool. But yeah, overall, a really thoroughly enjoyable show. And yeah, we met a new best friend in Daichi, which of course is fantastic. But yeah, for me, aside from the Stardom wrestlers, there's some real talent on that card that we didn't really talk about. As I mentioned, Brittany Blake I thought was absolutely fantastic. Danny Mo, though we didn't really see a great deal of Danny Mo because the three-way was centered very much around Azumi and Kyoko Inoue, and why wouldn't it be? Of course, Kyoko Inoue, who is absolutely lovely, by the way. One of my favorite meet and greets was with Kyoko Inoue. I'd like to see more of Danny Mo. But overall, a thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyable show. That show that you mentioned, Matt, is the 5th of June, where Spark are going to be teaming with Colors to do a show, or their first show in Japan, which, to be honest, is quite ridiculous when you consider that, they've run, is it 5 shows now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was their 5th show. And they're already going to Japan. They've already managed to forge a relationship with Stardom. Aja Kong, Kyoko Inoue, 2 of the greatest Joshi legends, were on that show. And you are cultivating female talent as well in the likes of a Maya World, a Jada Stone, a Brittany Blake. All in all, there was nothing but positives to say. Apart from it was a little bit too hot. But again, I feel like that's a me thing.
That's indie wrestling, brother. Welcome to the family.
Absolutely.
Well, you had a babysit Paul, so we figured that'd be the cherry on top. That'd be the cherry on top. So, yeah, all good stuff. We wind up getting to. We didn't go back to the hotel room because my other best friend. I have 3 best friends. I'm so lucky. My other best friend Jeff and my dad, they drove up from the Scranton area, and we weren't sure what time we were going to get out. So they just said, "Hey, we're just going to go to the parking lot over in Philly." Now, if you've never been to the Philadelphia area for a sporting event, so the Lincoln Financial Field is where the Eagles play. That is where WrestleMania was. So it's called the Philadelphia Sports Complex. So you have where the Eagles play, you have where the Phillies play baseball, and then where the indoor arena where NXT was, where the Flyers play hockey, where the Sixers play basketball. So it's all, so you can park anywhere. So let's just park over at the basketball stadium because the other parking lots will be close to full. Well, sure enough, they literally park in the same area we parked for NXT, and then just walked over to the Lincoln Financial Field for WrestleMania. And we probably got there maybe about 45 minutes after they did. And Paul kept texting me and said, "Dude, there's no place to park." And I'm like, "We'll find a place. We'll find a place." Sure enough, we pull in the parking lot where they were, and we find 2 spaces that we can park in. However, as we pull in, the people that parked next to it took 2 spaces. I was like, how much of a jerk can you be where there's going to be 70,000 people here that you have to take up 2 parking spaces? But eventually we were able to back into a teeny, teeny, tiny space. We were able to make it in. You had some lovely Old Fork pizza again for the second time because you had some when you came over to my house on Wednesday. And you got to yuck it up with my buddy Jeff and my dad. And then they were passing around some, was it Jim Beam whiskey? Was that the...
It was
that the drink of the night, Rob?
peach Jim Beam whiskey.
Oh, and then it was so funny because we were just getting ready to go in because we only were able to have maybe 1 or 2 drinks. I think by the time we got there, it was like 30, 40 minutes before we wanted to go in. And then my buddy Jeff's like, hey, there's enough in here for a shot for everybody. My cousin Frank really doesn't drink. So he's like, there's enough in here for everybody to have a shot. Let's everybody do a shot of Jim Beam peach whiskey. And then we'll head on in. Jeff took his first shot. Then it went to my dad. And then nobody else got it. And that was the end of that bottle.
That was great.
I thought was pretty, which I thought was pretty hilarious. So, so funny because my dad never drank when we were, and like a beer every now and again when we were kids. Then all of a sudden, I think maybe about 12 years ago, we started taking him to concerts and he let out his inner child. But anywho, we get to the venue. Cousin Frank and Paul had different tickets than we did because I couldn't get 4 or 6 together at that time. So I had to wait a little bit because night 2 was a hot ticket. So we send them off and then we go to get into our seats and then we're walking and walking and walking. We figured, okay, this is where the section has to be. And all of a sudden the venue cuts off. We have no idea where we need to be.
Stadium literally ends.
Lovely. Yeah. And I was like, this isn't set up like any other stadium, even though it's a gorgeous stadium. And then we asked the lady where to go. And she's like, you're going to be mad at me. And I was like, I won't be mad at you if you tell us where we need to go. And she points and she goes, you as far away from your seats as possible. And I said, that's fine. We know where we need to go. So I was kind of hustling along a little bit because I just wanted to make sure you guys got every second of WrestleMania. So we finally, as we got to our seats, it was maybe about 7:05, and Stephanie McMahon just came out. So we didn't miss anything. So that was my main thing. I just want to make sure we got into our seats. There was a gentleman that was actually in my seat. And he kind of, when I got into my seat, I said, no, I'm sitting here. And he kind of gave me a little bit of gruff. He kind of gave me, he's like, oh, I kind of wanted to sit there. And I'm like, well, this is the seat that I bought.
I don't care where you want to sit. I pay for this seat.
So now, again, everything's going well. We hit a couple bumps in the road on the live podcast we talked about earlier. Spark Joshi show was great. We loved it. We got to our seats. And I figured I'll just put the Matt Turner. I'll be the nice guy, Matt Turner. And we have a WrestleMania Sunday tradition where me and Paul both wear our Roddy Piper shirts because we're just huge marks for the late great Roddy Piper. This guy was wearing a Hulk Hogan shirt, so I said, "Hey man," I said, "Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper." I said, "How about that?" I said, "Me and you can feud." So they started chuckling a little bit, and then I'm like, "Hey, if you need to take," because I think he said the angle where my seat was perfect for his picture. I said, "But if you need to lean over," I said, "That's fine. Don't worry about it." So then I got to talking. Then I asked him where he was from. He goes, Honesdale, Pennsylvania. And I go, 72,000 people here. I said, you're from Honesdale, Pennsylvania. I said, my last job, I was a manager in Honesdale, Pennsylvania. Then I tapped Jeff on the shoulder because he used to work at the office I was manager at. He's like, do you know this person? Do you know this business? Do you know that? And the two of them. And then all of a sudden, I became my best friend after he got so mad at me because I was in my seat. So I just thought that was really, really funny. Jeff wound up buying a round of beers for everybody. And then we started off with a great match with Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins, which was one of my favorite matches of the 2 nights. It was either that one or the Iyo and Bayley match. So, but night 2 was all sorts of fun. I thought Cody and Roman was good. We knew it was going to be a lot of run-ins, brother. That was the whole idea because Bloodline rules. You're going to get a whole bunch of run-ins, and it was rumored of certain people that were going to be there. But brother, I talked to you after the show, but I mean, tell everybody on the podcast, those run-ins, especially that last one. You when that gong went off, buddy, I thought your head was going to explode. What was going through your mind, my man?
I mean, you want those WWE legends at WrestleMania. You want to be able to see, you've seen The Undertaker, Austin, Rock, and when it was announced that The Rock would be wrestling, I was like, oh my God, I get to see The Rock wrestle someone who I've grown up with, and then to have the run-ins that we did have, the John Cena run-in to take out Solo Sikoa, and then we had The Undertaker run-in, which was so perfectly done to take out The Rock. It was great, and because we all expected it to be Austin, you were waiting for that glass to shatter, and instead the lights go down, there's a gong, and the stadium erupts. 70,000 fans just suddenly are transported back to 1995 or whatever, and, the lights go down, the lights come up. I love the fact that we didn't get a full intro from him, a full, music and stuff like that. Just gong, appears, chokeslam, gong, disappeared. Perfectly done. Yes, it was hella overbooked. However, I don't feel like unless you were there, you can't like comprehend the emotion that was in the crowd when Cody finally pinned Roman. It was like nothing I've ever seen. It was incredible. It really was. But yeah, it topped off a absolutely phenomenal week. You know, a really cathartic ending. We didn't have to sit in loads of traffic with Paul serenading us with his guttural snores, which was always, which was a plus. And then, yeah, Matt, it's been a beautiful week.
Somebody asked me like how was the 4 days, and if I were to take the best 24 hours of those 4 days and make it one day, it would go birth of my daughter, my wedding day, and then this. This is how awesome this was. And obviously the biggest thanks to you. You had the longest travel day. Obviously it was so much fun because we did all the Stardom stuff. Like everything was great. Everything, like the worst thing, again, and as much as I bitched about what happened with the bar, and again, when people ask me, and again, I'm going to go pick up my comic books here in about an hour, and they're going to ask me how the live podcasts go. I'm going to say it went great. I'm going to forget about that. I just kind of just want to put over how amazing Sean and Paul were, last minute. Even the little bumps in the road, even me almost driving us into train tracks on that first night.
Not almost, mate. You did drive us onto train tracks.
I did, but I mean, we didn't hit any train though.
That's true.
Thank God for that. But no, the show, and even somebody said was this, and I not my WrestleMania knowledge is like top notch. Like I've seen every WrestleMania match more than once. Like I know where every WrestleMania. You throw a WrestleMania number out at me, I can tell you what the main event was, what the best match was, and where it was within a matter of seconds. And someone asked me, was this the best ending ever in the history of WrestleMania? And it's either this or WrestleMania 3. And I always go to WrestleMania 3 because that was the first WrestleMania I remember watching as a kid. It might have been a week or so after it happened. And then you have the whole thing with Hogan slamming Andre. Growing up 3-4 years old, the biggest thing on your TV is Hulk Hogan. And for him to slay the giant when you're that old, but it's like, I think this was, and it was a year build up. Again, we talked about it last year. I didn't agree with Roman defeating Cody. I thought Roman's title reign this past 12 months was very below average, but this was the payoff we got. Seth Rollins losing the very first match, then dyeing his hair in between the first and last match so he looked like a member of the Shield, just so he can get Superman punched and then hit with a chair from Roman Reigns, because Roman is more concerned about beating up Shield Seth Rollins than defeating Cody, getting in his head. I thought the epic levels of storytelling were great. Would have been cool to have Austin. Absolutely. Would have been cool. It's WrestleMania 40. The guy that put WrestleMania on the map the first 8 or 9 years, Hulk Hogan. Again, absolutely. Was I disappointed? No. Again, the whole Undertaker gong thing was just absolutely insane. And then again, I mention all the time, when you have your biggest crowd reaction in a match and it's not the finish, you need to go to the finish. They went to the finish right at, it wasn't too long after. I think Cody getting the win. And I remember at last year's WrestleMania, Brian Alvarez said that once Roman got the 3 count, they said, like, next thing you know, you look up and like 10,000 people are already gone out of their seats because they were so disappointed with the end, where like nobody left. I mean, we stayed for the whole promo. He told Triple H and Bruce Pritchard to come down. I was a little upset Bruce Pritchard didn't come out as Brother Love.
We all were, mate.
You had all these other run-ins. Why didn't he come out as Brother Love? But I don't know if that made air. I'm not sure. I didn't go back and watch it.
It did.
But it did. But you had this. The 3 count happened, and everybody knows you're waiting in traffic. Nobody left. Nobody, because we were all there to celebrate with Cody. So I thought it was great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd probably put WrestleMania 30 up there as well.
Oh yeah, that's a great one with Danielson winning both belts, and then his niece coming into the ring, and then especially with Connor the Crusher, the child with brain cancer that he wound up passing away, I think, in the next few months, sitting in the front row. Yeah, that's a good one too, buddy.
But yeah, I mean, what a week. Everything aligned for us. It was an unforgettable week. However, I have now not slept for over 33 hours. So I'm going to wrap this podcast up. But before we do, Matt, I know technically we've already done Iyo and Kyrie Botch, but why don't you tell us what's been going on with Iyo and Kyrie this week?
All right, Iyo and Kyrie watch. There's 4 segments, and they're all quick segments because of we recorded early last week. So Monday Night Raw, we have a backstage promo. This was the Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania. Backstage promo with all members of Damage Control, with Dakota Kai doing the majority of the talking, setting up Kyrie, Asuka, and Dakota Kai versus Zoe Stark, Tegan Nox, and Shayna Baszler. This is actually a really, really good 6-person match. It got a little bit more time. Tegan Nox and Shayna Baszler, both former members, or not members, both former wrestlers of Stardom. And I'm a huge fan of Zoe Stark. I think she's absolutely terrific. For somebody who doesn't have that Stardom background or didn't like cut her teeth in the indies, I think her wrestling style is absolutely fantastic. And she does a great job coming across to the Monday Night Raw crowd. But eventually, though, it is the 6-person triple teamwork onto Zoe Stark of Dakota Kai with the running boot and the Kyrie and Asuka assisted insane elbow to get the 3 count. We go to SmackDown on the 5th of April as we just have a pre-tape promo that basically sets up the match with Bayley and Iyo for WrestleMania, and it was the same promo they showed before WrestleMania. So really not much there. WrestleMania Night 1, we touched upon it a little bit as we see the team of Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair, and Naomi defeating the Kabuki Warriors and Dakota Kai of Damage Control with a combination of Asuka accidentally missing poor Kyrie, and then eventually Jade Cargill hitting the Jaded on Dakota Kai for the finish. I thought the match was pretty good. Went a little bit too short. They could have cut off 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes of the main event and gave some of it to this match, but that's just me. I thought Iyo and Bayley was fantastic. You made mention that you thought that Bayley got injured somewhere in the match because she was really, really hobbling on that foot, and I don't think anything came out yet. Maybe she just got banged up in the match and couldn't finish it 100%, but she got it through. And Iyo was really like Stardom Iyo towards the end with the constant moonsaults, with her just taking these big bumps onto her neck, a la Mayu. I think Mayu did go to the WrestleMania show, and I think when they were putting together the match, Iyo said to Mayu, Mayu, what do you think? Say, you take bump on neck like me, Cork and Hall. I think that's what happened there because she took some crazy bumps. Even the finish when she hit the rose plant, Iyo properly took that right on her neck and it looked gross in the best way possible. But my favorite 4 matches of WrestleMania were Gunther and Sammy was probably my favorite. And then 2, 3, and 4 probably rotate with Iyo versus Bayley, with Seth versus Drew, and then with Becky and Rhea.
Yes, agreed. And then you throw, Eddie Kingston and Mark Briscoe in there. You throw Micah and Megan Bain in there. There's a whole host of great wrestling. And whether you watched the GCW stuff, DDT, TJPW, Wrestle Revolver, whatever you watched or wherever you were, I hope you had a fantastic week. I really do. But before we go anywhere, just a couple of previews. So Stardom have announced the full card for the Korakuen show on the 12th of April, which is Friday as we record. And of course, the main stigma of this is that it is Julia's final Stardom match and Utami's as well. So the card is as follows. Tam Nakano, Natsupoi, Sioriano versus Sayaka Kurora, Aya Sakura, and Yuna Mizumori, with the added stipulation that Sayaka Kurora and Aya Sakura, this is their final opportunity to officially join Cosmic Angels. EXV team of Waka, Tsukiyama, and Hanako taking on Starlight and Ruaka. Saki Kashima and Rani Yagami versus Lady C and Miyu Amasaki versus Koguma and Momokogo. Suzu Suzuki, Mei Seira, and Rian versus Natsukatora, Rina, and Fukigen Death. Hazuki versus Amisori versus Zena versus Momo Watanabe in a 4-way. That's a little tasty throwaway 4-way, that. Hazuki, Amisori, Xena, and Momo Watanabe. Yes, please. And then our 2 main events. Julia and Syuri, ALK, riding one last time against Eye Contact, Mayu Iwatani, and Hanan. And then Aphrodite will team up against 2 other members of the Golden Generation, Micah and Saya Ida. I think those 2 last matches are perhaps as perfect as Stardom could book them, Matt.
Maybe I'm being a little greedy, but I would love to see ALK versus Aphrodite as the final write-off. That's just me. But no, those 2 matches are great. I know Stardom, maybe about an hour or so before we hit the record button, they did make mention that there's going to be streaming information coming soon. My guess would be this will be like one of those like $12 or $13 pay-per-views. That would be my guess because I think they know that people will shell out a few bucks for this show in Cork and Hall since it's the final Utami versus Julia. But hey, I wouldn't be upset with all the money Stardom made at WrestleMania weekend. Wouldn't be upset if they just said, "Hey, this is going to we're going to stream this baby free live on Stardom World." But my guess it's going to be a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it isn't. Which is unfortunate, but that's the lay of the land at the moment. Also on the 12th, we've got Windy City Riot, which is the New Japan show, main evented by Tetsuya Naito versus Jon Moxley for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. We have also got on the pre-show Mina Shirakawa in a tag team match, teaming with Viva Van, who we also saw on the Spa Joshi show, taking on the team of Alex Windsor and Trish Adora. We've got Stephanie Vaca defending her New Japan Strong Women's Championship against Azumi as well, which is going to be a great match. But I think, Matt, that we are both in the camp that Stephanie Vaca retains.
Yeah, I think so. And hopefully then she gets some work over here in Stardom. I'd love to see her defend that title on the Yokohama Buntai show or somewhere in Stardom, because her versus, I mean, how many people, like Saya Kamatani, Hazuki, Saida, Hanan for that title, I think would be really, really good stuff.
And then finally, just a couple of quick things. Stardom actually runs shows on the 13th and the 14th as well. The 13th in Numazu in Shizuoka, and the 14th in Hamamatsu, in Act City, Hamamatsu. But none of the cards have been released for those two shows as of yet. So we are still waiting for lineups, which means at the moment I publish this podcast, they will announce them. And then, of course, don't forget that on April 14th, the Sunday, Hanako and Starlight Kid will be in Taiwan as a part of New Japan's Wrestling World 2024. So next week, we will have reviews of all of those things. And if Stardom make good on the promise to begin doing the live streams for house shows, then that means we can get all of those shows done and in on Wednesday's show. But Matt Turner, what a fantastic week. Thank you to all of the people at Stardom and Spark Joshi and everybody else who made this weekend an incredible experience. Thank you to all of our listeners, whether you came and said hello to us, whether you shook our hand, whether we chatted, whether we hung out, whether we had a beer, whether I signed a book, or whether you had photos with us, or whether you just listened to the podcast. Thank you so much for all your support. It is mental just how much support we have gotten, and yeah, guys, thank you. It really does mean the absolute world to us. Hopefully we will have some more information regarding live streaming our episode reviewing the Yokohama Buntai show, the 27th of April. So keep your ears to the ground. Hopefully we'll have something announced in the next couple of days, Matt, maybe.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I know there's a certain somebody that would like to join us for that. So I'll try to maybe lock that down in the next week or so.
Yeah, of course, main evented by Mike versus Momo Watanabe. That's going to be great. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, that brings an end to an absolutely incredible recap of our WrestleMania exploits. We have gone over 3 hours, significantly over 3 hours. So thank you for hanging with us. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you all for mocking me at the live podcast, because apparently it is not a 2x4, it's a 2x4. Who knew? Apparently just letting my Britishness take over. But thank you, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, just thank you. But that about wraps it up. So if you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can wherever you get your podcasts. If you think we deserved it, a 5-star review and a comment goes a long, long way to helping us be exposed to even more people and help spread the word of Joshi to lots of other people and things as well. Don't forget to check out the website, www.thestardomcast.com. You can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/thestardomcast for as little as $1 a month, and you get all of our episodes early and ad-free and a whole host of bonus content as well. You can find us on at the Stardom Cast on all social media. We're on YouTube at the Stardom Cast as well. Don't forget to check out Chasing the Dream, 50 of Stardom's greatest matches on Amazon in both Kindle form and in paperback as well. You can talk to me on Twitter if you so wish it at Real Rob Goodwin. Matt Turner, sign us off.
Absolutely. We got to get Rob Goodwin to bed and get some sleep. Questions, comments, anything you need from me, Matt Turner OF, on the Instagram and or the Twitter is the best way to get a hold of me. The email is the stardomcast22@gmail.com. It's the best way to get a hold of me via email. Folks, like Rob said it, just thank you all so much. It's unbelievable. This podcast keeps growing the way that I think it's going to grow. There's a very good chance that as long as Stardom or Joshi comes over for WrestleMania weekend, we will be there each and every year. Because, I mean, we have a lot of people ask us, "Are you guys do this again next year?" WrestleMania next year is not my neck of the woods, but there's a good possibility we will be there because we had an absolute blast. Because we can't do this without you. Because, like I always say, it's just not my podcast; it's our podcast. Because when we're all together, everybody's different, everybody's special.